Chapter 764. In the Outer Realm, Qin Shu Jian and the other demon emperors stood opposite each other in the air. No one made the first move. The last time they fought at their peak, the demon emperors were unable to take down Qin Shu Jian. Now that they were all heavily injured, they did not want to make a move on their own. As for Qin Shu Jian, although he was strong, he did not have absolute confidence that he could take down a few demon emperors. For a moment, the situation was in a stalemate. If you don't want to make a move, then go back to where you came from. Qin Shu Jian was calm and collected, as if the person standing in front of him was not a demon emperor, but an ordinary person. As soon as he finished speaking, the demon emperors did not say anything. After a while, Bok took a deep look at Qin Shu Jian, and then a voice sounded in the ears of all the clansmen, "Retreat." Immediately, the clansmen of the Bok clan were the first to retreat. At the same time, the clansmen of the Mo Xia Luo clan and the Yizo clan also retreated at the same time. Qin Shu Jian watched the three clans retreat and did not have any intention of stopping them. However, when he saw that the cultivators of the myriad clans still wanted to chase after them, he said something. "Don't chase after a cornered enemy." Immediately, the cultivators of the myriad clans could not help but stop. Qin Shu Jian said, "Clean up the battlefield and count the losses. Choose a day to start the second round of the selection of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. Cultivators of all clans can go to the fallen immortal realm to participate." When it came to cleaning up the battlefield, Qin Shu Jian saw that the void could not be any cleaner and could not help but change his words. After saying that, he turned around and entered the heaven and earth passage. From beginning to end, Qin Shu Jian had only exchanged blows with Bok once when he first appeared. Other than that, he did not make a move again. He was not confident that he could take down Bok and the other demon emperors. Bok and the other demon emperors were not confident that they could defeat him. This way, if the situation had not reached the point where they had no choice but to fight, both sides would not easily erupt into a decisive battle. Because once a decisive battle broke out, even if it was a fiend emperor powerhouse, there was also the possibility of dying. Any demon emperor had existed for countless years. If they died because of this, it would not be the result they wanted. Heavenly Court. The fallen immortals and gods had all been reborn in the investiture of the gods. When he returned to the Heavenly Court, Qin Shu Jian immediately headed for the sky above the Heavenly Court. There was a projection of Zhou Tian's star diagram, and a vast amount of star power was pouring down from it, bathing the entire Heavenly Court in star power. Emperor of Heaven. Sanhua, who had been quietly resting on Zhou Tian's star map, spoke. Qin Shu Jian nodded and immediately took out the investiture of the gods. The dozens of stars sealed within were all released at this moment. Boom! The immense pressure crushed the void into smithereens. Qin Shu Jian was familiar with the process. Without wasting any time, he sealed up the stars. Then, like a gourd drawing a gourd, he placed all the sealed stars into the star cycle map. Originally, there were already many stars in Zhou Tian's star map. Now that there were more than a dozen stars, the overflowing star power instantly more than doubled. The star power was rich. The great wide world was immediately affected. After doing these things, Qin Shu Jian returned to the Heavenly Court. The branches and leaves of the osmanthus tree swayed. If one looked carefully, one could see that there were already buds on it, as if they would bloom at any time. Emperor of Heaven is back. Muyang transformed and landed in front of Qin Shu Jian. Qin Shu Jian nodded slightly. Then his gaze fell on Muyang. "You're about to break through to the true immortal realm." Soon, Muyang nodded and said respectfully, "The star energy in the Heavenly Court is rich, and my cultivation is much faster than usual. In a few months, I should be able to break through to the true immortal realm." True immortal. Qin Shu Jian looked at him and said, "There are 3 paths to break through to the true immortal realm. They are divided into the derivation of heaven and earth, the sanctification of the physical body, and the final path of the nomological path. You are now at the limit of the heavenly being realm. If you want to walk the path of the derivation of heaven and earth, you need to start from scratch, so there is no need. As for the sanctification of the physical body, Eldar's physical body is not weak, so there is some hope. Do you plan to walk the traditional path of the nomological path, or do you want to try the path of the sanctification of the physical body? The sanctification of the physical body. The path of the nomological path. Mu Yang's face was full of confusion. Although he had the memories of a half-immortal, to be honest, the ancient half-immortals had seen a lot, but that was only relative. When it came to matters at the true immortal realm, there were not many things that a half-immortal could know. Not to mention, the path of the sanctification of the physical body had never appeared in ancient times. Xiao Chengfeng could walk the path of the sanctification of the physical body on his own, but he only had some enlightenment. The real beginning was in this life. Seeing this, Qin Shujian suddenly raised his hand, and his index finger landed directly between Mu Yang's eyebrows. Suddenly, a large amount of memories emerged. The impact of the memories almost scattered Mu Yang's incarnation. He retracted his hand. Qin Shujian said, "I will teach you the purple heaven divine thunder scripture. Eldar is naturally afraid of lightning, but if you can temper your body with lightning, the effect will be much stronger than ordinary living beings. Although the sanctification of the physical body will be more powerful than the path of the nomological path, nothing is absolute in the world. Since ancient times, the truly powerful has always been the cultivator himself, and it has nothing to do with the path one takes. So what you want to think is entirely up to you." After saying that, Qin Shujian did not wait for Mu Yang's reply and directly entered the inner hall of the heavenly palace, imparting the purple heaven divine thunder scripture. He was only interested in Mu Yang's talent. Not everyone who obtained the purple heaven divine thunder scripture could successfully embark on the path of sanctification of the physical body. As early as a few eras ago, the number of cultivators who died under the lightning tribulation was uncountable. Among them, there were also some experts who cultivated supreme techniques like the purple heaven divine thunder scripture, but they could not escape the fate of death. Therefore, Qin Shujian never imparted the purple heaven divine thunder scripture without permission. Although for the vast majority of cultivators, an expert who walked the path of sanctification of the physical body was more than twice as strong as an expert who walked the path of the nomological path. This was because not everyone could successfully attain the Tao. Compared to insisting on cultivating the purple heaven divine thunder scripture and then dying under the lightning tribulation, it was more appropriate to walk the path of the nomological path. There were so many disciples in the Yuan sect. In the end, Qin Shujian only imparted it to a few dozen people. Mu Yang's talent was not bad, and he was now the emperor of the Eldar in name, so he could also be blessed by the luck of the Eldar. There was a high chance that he could successfully attain the Tao in the future. It was also because of this that Qin Shujian imparted the purple heaven divine thunder scripture. After all, there was one more expert whose physical body was sanctified. It was equivalent to the combat power of a middle third-level true immortal. Of course, not every expert whose physical body was sanctified could be comparable to a fourth-level true immortal when they were just a first-level true immortal. But even if they were not as good as a fourth-level true immortal, it would not be a problem for them to be comparable to an ordinary third-level true immortal. Chapter 765. Returning to the inner hall of the heavenly palace. Qin Shujian calmed his mind and immediately observed the changes in his inner world. During this period of time, there were frequent strange movements in his inner world. But because he didn't have time, he temporarily suppressed this curiosity. Now, he finally had time to check the changes in his inner world. He was immersed in it. Qin Shujian took in the entire inner world. Unlike when it had just evolved, the current inner heaven and earth had a lot more life-chi dynamics. A large number of living beings were born. Rules were born one after another, causing the world to be in a perfect state. It's a pity that too many of the myriad races have disappeared. I can't see the scene of the myriad races at their peak in the ancient times. Otherwise, I would have the chance to comprehend all the rules of the myriad races. Qin Shujian shook his head regretfully. At their peak, there were definitely more than 10,000 races. But until now, there were only a little more than 1,000 races. If he was at his peak and comprehended all the rules of the myriad races, even if his strength couldn't break through to the Dao fruit level, he would definitely be able to reach the half-step Dao fruit level. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in anything. The decline of the myriad races was inevitable. Perhaps in the years to come, a new race would be born. But that would be a very long time ago. All of a sudden, Qin Shujian realized that he had overlooked something. No, even the rules of the myriad races, I haven't comprehended all of them. I've only comprehended the rules of the gods of the heavenly court. As for those who aren't qualified to enter the heavenly court and obtain the deity position, I haven't truly comprehended them. He had only comprehended the rules of the gods of the heavenly court because in the beginning, the emperors of the myriad races who hadn't entered the heavenly court basically didn't become immortals. Therefore, Qin Shujian didn't comprehend those rules. But it was different now. The number of true immortals of the myriad races wasn't fewer than the gods of the heavenly court. In fact, there was a certain amount more. But because he was busy during this period of time, Qin Shujian didn't think of this matter for a while. Until now, he finally reacted. There was such a large wave of wool waiting for him to harvest. Quite a number of the true immortals of the myriad races have fallen in the two wars. What a pity. If the true immortals of the myriad races hadn't perished, I would have been able to comprehend even more laws. Qin Shujian thought to himself. He had already decided that once the battlefield was cleaned up, he would seek out the true immortals of the myriad races and take the opportunity to comprehend the laws within. At this moment, Qin Shujian had already turned his attention to his inner world. His inner world had expanded significantly and was now comparable to the size of the eastern continent. Although there was still a gap between it and the other 3 continents, it could already be said to be vast and boundless. Furthermore, Qin Shujian could clearly sense it. His inner world was slowly expanding. However, the speed of expansion had already decreased by a lot. After all, there was a limit to the size of heaven and earth. It was impossible for it to expand endlessly. Although the size of his inner world had not reached the limit of an ordinary medium-class world, it was not far from it. In Qin Shujian's perception, many living beings had already appeared in the inner world. Among them, the strongest was still Jianmu. As the first living being to be born, he was already in the half-immortal realm and was only one step away from becoming a true immortal. If Jianmu was compared to the first echelon of experts, then the human clan's wind and the other living beings that were born around the same time were considered the second echelon of experts. This group of living beings, they were all mighty figures who had reached the 7th level of the celestial being realm or above. Then, they were the other living beings that were born. But so far, all the living beings that were born were considered the first living beings of their respective races. Therefore, no matter how weak they were still in the celestial being realm. When living beings are born, the corresponding laws will naturally be born. Right now, only 1 or 2 living beings of each race have been born, so they can be considered unique. If a living being were to fall, this race might be temporarily wiped out. But as long as the laws exist, there will still be a chance in the future to give birth to the corresponding living beings. In this way, I don't have to worry that these living beings will be completely wiped out because of fighting. Qin Shujian's divine will merged with heaven and earth. Everything in the inner world was in his eyes. In his perception, there were already living beings fighting and killing each other. It was just that the strength of both sides was about the same. Although there were losses in the battle, it was not to the extent of dying. In this regard, Qin Shujian watched with an indifferent attitude and had no intention of interfering at all. After briefly observing the changes in the inner world, his mind withdrew from the inner world. In the inner hall of the heavenly palace, on the throne, Qin Shujian opened his eyes. The investiture of the gods on the table rose automatically. The names of the gods of the heavenly court on it suddenly flickered at this moment. From today onwards, all immortals and gods will leave the heavenly court and head to the void of the outer realm to find suitable stars and star cores," Qin Shu Jian said faintly. When his voice fell into the investiture of the gods, it had already reached the ears of the gods. He was going to go by himself. However, what happened now made Qin Shu Jian suddenly realize that it was better for him not to leave the great wide world so easily. Otherwise, if the Void Fiend launched another large-scale attack, perhaps even the heavenly court would be raided by the Fiend Emperor. This was not a joke. Even if the probability was only 1 in 10,000, Qin Shu Jian did not want to take the risk. Find the star cores of the stars. Emperor Zhao was originally in the void of the outer realm to deal with the follow-up matters and had not completely returned to the heavenly court. After receiving the news, he was stunned for a moment. Then he came back to his senses. He looked at Dan Hao and said calmly, "Help me deal with the matter of the extraterritorial battlefield. I still have other things to do." "Yes, Your Majesty." Dan Hao did not hesitate and immediately bowed to accept the order. In the next moment, Emperor Zhao flew into the sky and directly headed toward the void of the outer realm. Earlier, the Emperor of Heaven had already asked them to collect the star cores of the stars. However, because of the time, not many people took action for the time being. However, now that there was news again, it was obvious that the other party was more urgent. Emperor Zhao did not have the possibility of delaying this any longer. Just as Emperor Zhao was leaving, the other immortals and gods also temporarily put down the matters at hand. After giving a simple explanation, they headed toward the void of the outer realm. When the immortals and gods left, in the inner hall of the heavenly palace, a person stepped in and bowed when he saw Qin Shu Jian. "Ningbo greets the Emperor of Heaven. No need for formalities." "Thank you, Emperor of Heaven." Only then did Ningyu straighten up and look at the throne. Qin Shu Jian smiled faintly. "You don't have to be too reserved. Although you have now entered the heavenly court and become a heavenly general, you are still my disciple. When there are no outsiders, you can just call me Master." Master." A smile appeared on Ningbo's solemn face. His originally tense body instantly relaxed a lot. Chapter 766. Qin Shu Jian looked at him, his eyes seeming to see through him. "You're about to reach the 7th level of the celestial being realm, right?" Master's eyes are as sharp as torches. Walking the path of heaven and earth derivation, you don't need to rely on the laws to prove your Tao. As long as you wait until all 129,600 star acupoints are opened, a world will naturally be opened in your body. At that time, your realm will break through to the true immortal realm. Qin Shu Jian suddenly paused as he spoke. "Below." Ningbo did not interrupt, but stood at the side and listened silently. "No. Strictly speaking, after heaven and earth derivation, there's a difference from the traditional realm. I've divided the realm after heaven and earth derivation into 3 levels. The first level is the minor kiliacosm. After successfully opening it, compared to the traditional realm, you'll be equivalent to reaching the 4th level of the celestial being realm. The second level is the middle kiliacosm. Once you break through to the middle kiliacosm, your strength will be equivalent to the upper 3 levels of the true immortal realm. As for the last level, it's the greater kiliacosm. Once you step into the greater kiliacosm, your strength will officially break through to the Tao fruit realm. You cultivate the Gudyuan ancestral canon, so you should be very clear about the difficulty of opening the star acupoints. It's also because of this difficulty that when other systems break through to the true immortal realm, they'll only reach the 1st level of the celestial being realm. However, once you succeed in heaven and earth derivation, it'll be equivalent to reaching the 4th level of the celestial being realm. Moreover, a meaningful smile appeared on Qin Shu Jian's face. When you really break through, you'll realize that the benefits of taking this path are by no means comparable to those of other systems. Therefore, when you're in the celestial being realm, you don't need to comprehend too much of a law. Instead, you should comprehend more different laws as long as it's within your ability. Only in this way can your strength increase greatly the moment you break through. In the heavenly palace, Qin Shu Jian said slowly. He was now telling Ningbo some of his experiences bit by bit. There was a limit to the celestial being realm. It was definitely not an easy task to open 129,600 star acupoints. However, if he could reach the 6th level of the celestial being realm at Ningbo's age, then the probability of a successful breakthrough in the future was very high. Therefore, he didn't have to worry about spoiling things. Furthermore, after Qin Shu Jian had taken him in as his disciple, he felt that he rarely paid attention to him. Speaking of which, he was also very unqualified as a master. Now that there was an opportunity, he might as well say a little more. This could also be considered as a form of compensation. After Qin Shu Jian finished speaking, Ningbo then revealed a grateful expression. Thank you for your guidance, Shizhuan. The stellar energy in the heavenly court is very dense. It will be of great help to you in opening your stellar acupoints. Cultivate well. Qin Shu Jian sighed, seeming to be right but actually not.
Then,
his expression returned to normal as he looked at the other party and said, I'll leave the selection of the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals to you. The assessment criteria will be the same as last time. Anyone who passed the test would be able to enter the heavenly court. At the same time, I confer upon you the title of 1,000 guards. You can command 1,000 heavenly soldiers and 10 heavenly generals. You will temporarily be under the command of the Eastern War God. Thank you, Master. Ningbo bowed and accepted the order. Immediately, Ningbo's name appeared on the investiture of the gods. The moment he left his name on the investiture of the gods, a mighty force from the unseen world descended. Ningbo's body shook slightly. A powerful force had already erupted in his body. One acupoint after another was forcibly opened. After few breaths, the aura on his body had become much stronger. If it was said that he had already broken through to the 6th level of the celestial being realm, then he was now a little closer to the 7th level of the celestial being realm.
Go.
Qin Shu Jian simply waved his hand. Seeing this, Ningbo immediately bowed and retreated. Soon, only Qin Shu Jian was left in the inner hall of the heavenly palace. Isn't 1,000 guards deity position a little too low? Godslayer could not help but ask. He's only at the 6th level of the celestial being realm. It's already his limit to be able to bear 1,000 guards deity position. Any higher and it won't do him any good. Qin Shu Jian shook his head. 1,000 guards deity position was barely enough to leave his name on the investiture of the gods. It was still the same sentence. If one wanted to hold a deity position, one had to have the corresponding strength. 6th level of the celestial being realm. In terms of true strength, it was only comparable to an emperor. If it was when the heavenly court was just established, it would be fine. Their luck was not too strong, and the threshold for holding a deity position was much lower. But now it was different. The powerhouses of the myriad races appeared one after another, and the heavenly court's luck also rose sharply.
Such a change.
It caused the power that the deity position could give to become stronger and stronger. But at the same time, the threshold for holding a deity position also increased correspondingly. Fortunately, Ningbo had broken through to the 6th level of the celestial being realm. Otherwise, with his original realm, he would not be qualified to hold this deity position. Let's go and have a chat with the true immortals of the myriad races. Qin Shu Jian shook his head. His body had already quietly disappeared from the heavenly palace. The ice race's secret realm. At this moment, the entrance to the secret realm was no longer closed. It was not just the ice race. The entrances to the secret realms of the other races had never been closed after the heavenly court was established. The secret realms that were originally closed. This was because the spiritual qi in the secret realms could allow the cultivators of the races to cultivate. But it was different now. With the stars shining on the 4 great continents, the density of the energy between heaven and earth completely surpassed the secret realms of the other races. In this way, if the secret realms were to be sealed again, it would be neglecting the essentials. After the death of the previous Ice Emperor, there was a short period of chaos in the Ice Clan. Then, there was a new Ice Emperor who succeeded the throne. In fact, Not many people would remember the original name of the emperor of each race, because the name of the emperor already represented everything. Just like the previous Ice Emperor, not many people really knew his name. When they talked about it, most of them used the previous Ice Emperor as a substitute. In the Ice Clan's main hall, the current Ice Emperor was silently cultivating. The void trembled slightly. Qin Shujian was already standing in the main hall, but the Ice Emperor still didn't notice anything. It wasn't until Qin Shujian deliberately leaked some of his aura. The Ice Emperor suddenly woke up. When he saw the person in the main hall clearly, a panicked expression immediately appeared on his face. Then he stood up from the throne. He walked in front of Qin Shujian. He bowed down. "Greetings, Emperor of Heaven." "Ice Emperor, there's no need to be so polite." "Thank you, Emperor of Heaven." The Ice Emperor stood up and looked at Qin Shujian. He asked tentatively, "Emperor of Heaven, what brings you to my Ice Clan this time?" As he spoke, his heart was also a little moved. A few years ago, when the power of the stars was rich, the Ice Emperor had already broken through to the true immortal realm. If it was in the past, if a race had a true immortal expert, it would be enough to become a big race. But it was different now. Although true immortals were experts, they weren't that rare. In addition, the Ice Clan had lost a lot of strength because of the previous battles, causing their strength to decline a lot. Chapter 767. At this moment, the Ice Clan. They were only a medium-sized clan and did not have the qualifications to become a big clan. Only by entering the Heavenly Court and holding a deity position could the Ice Clan rise. Therefore, the Ice Emperor had always wanted to enter the Heavenly Court. But unfortunately, there were limited deity positions in the Heavenly Court. Although he was a true immortal expert, he was not the strongest among the true immortals. There were many true immortals among the 10,000 clans, but only a small number of experts could enter the Heavenly Court. Therefore, even though the Ice Emperor had thoughts in his heart, he was not confident. Until now, Qin Shujian's sudden arrival made the Ice Emperor have many thoughts. Coming out of the game cabin, Fu Moyan's expression was still a little absent-minded. Not long ago, he had received shocking news in the game. Before he could calm down for long, a great battle with the Void Demons broke out. Until now, he didn't have time to digest all the news. "Wait, where's Tianyu?" Fu Moyan's entire body shivered. He instantly calmed his mind and observed his sea of consciousness. As expected, amidst the chaotic sea of consciousness, he saw a jade talisman lying there quietly.
Tianyu.
When he saw the jade talisman, Fu Moyan's heart trembled again. Very much. Tianyu really came out with him. His breathing gradually became rapid, and his chest rose and fell violently. He couldn't calm down for a long time. In that case, the Emperor of Heaven really has a way to kill players. Fu Moyan lost his voice and muttered to himself. Originally, he was only half convinced by Qin Shujian's words. The reason for his fear was because he didn't dare to gamble on that probability.
But now,
Fu Moyan no longer doubted it. Tianyu could appear in the real world with him. That proved that Qin Shujian's methods could really penetrate the game and reality. No, that's no longer a game. I was wondering why the cultivation level increased in the game could affect reality. It turns out that it's really a real world. Fu Moyan took a few deep breaths, but his heart was even more excited. He felt as if he had discovered a new continent. It was unbearably exciting. Fu Moyan understood. The moment Tianyu really appeared in his sea of consciousness, there would be a turning point in his life. He looked at Tianyu. Fu Moyan had no intention of taking it out for a look. According to Qin Shujian, if Tianyu were to appear in the real world, she would definitely attract the attention of certain existences. When that time comes, he would be obliterated by such an existence. After Tianyu appeared with him, Fu Moyan no longer dared to question the authenticity of Qin Shujian's words. Even if he had suspicions in his heart, he did not dare to test it out. If something really happened, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. He turned around and glanced at the gaming capsule. Fu Moyan walked out of the room and saw a woman in her 30s or 40s packing her things. After seeing him come out, the woman stood up and greeted politely, "Young Master Fu. I need to use the secret room for a few days. Don't let anyone disturb me. If anyone comes looking for me, help me reject them," Fu Moyan said calmly.
All right.
The woman's manner remained respectful. Fu Moyan didn't say anything else. Instead, he left the hall and headed to the basement. He had some status in the real world. His parents were businessmen and owned a lot of assets. And the place he was currently living in was an expensive villa. Because of the game, Fu Moyan didn't like to be disturbed, so he moved here alone. Other than a nanny who was in charge of food and living, there was no third person. After arriving at the basement, the originally dim environment suddenly brightened up. The basement wasn't big, but it basically had everything that should be there. Fu Moyan walked to one side of the wall and entered the password casually. Then, he saw the wall vibrate gently. It actually opened to the left and right like two doors. Just as he stepped into the secret room, the door that was originally open also closed automatically. Compared to the basement, the secret room in front of him was even smaller. Other than a futon in the middle, there was nothing else. This secret room, it was specially built by Fu Moyan after the recovery of Spirit Aura. The purpose was, it was to be used for his cultivation. After all, leveling up in the game didn't mean that he would have the corresponding strength in the real world. The level of the game, it could only speed up his cultivation progress when he was cultivating in the real world. It wouldn't directly increase his realm. Therefore, Fu Moyan needed the existence of a secret room to allow himself to cultivate the cultivation method he got in the game. He walked to the futon, and then sat down cross-legged. After sitting down cross-legged, Fu Moyan's mind sank into his body. Then, he recalled the Purple Heaven Thunder scripture in his mind and began to transform his original cultivation method bit by bit toward the Purple Heaven Thunder scripture. The cultivation method he originally cultivated was not of a low level, but it was definitely not of a high level. It couldn't be compared with the Purple Heaven Thunder scripture at all. Fu Moyan naturally wouldn't let go of the supreme cultivation method and continued to cultivate those useless cultivation methods. Transforming the cultivation method. It wasn't an easy thing to do. It was just that Fu Moyan's realm wasn't high. He was only at the 8th level of the real martial arts realm. So, the transformation wasn't too difficult. It only took him 8 or 9 days. He transformed all the cultivation methods he originally cultivated into the Purple Heaven Thunder scripture. On the futon, Fu Moyan suddenly opened his eyes. Suddenly, there was a faint purple light looming in the narrow secret room. Accompanied by the appearance of the purple light, there was a faint flash of thunder. Electricity in a virtual room. The Purple Heaven Thunder scripture is really extraordinary. There was a carefree smile on Fu Moyan's face. With his original realm, there was no way to cause such an abnormal phenomenon as electricity in a virtual room when he cultivated. Now, there was such a change just after the transformation of the Purple Heaven Thunder scripture. For this, Fu Moyan was even more satisfied. Then he focused his attention on himself again. The 6th level of the real martial arts realm is 2 levels lower than before the transformation. However, although my realm has dropped, my real strength shouldn't have. Fu Moyan thought to himself. He didn't really fight, so he couldn't estimate his current strength much. But with his experience in the game, Fu Moyan could basically guess. Although he was now at the 6th level of the real martial arts realm, he was definitely not weaker than the original 8th level of the real martial arts realm. Even, his strength could be better. Then, Fu Moyan calmed down and began to communicate with Tianyu. There was a price for him to get the upper part of the Purple Heaven Thunder scripture. And if he wanted to get the follow-up benefits, he had to complete the corresponding task. Tianyu was the bridge of communication. Chapter 768. He had not broken through to the spirit martial realm. The sea of consciousness had not been opened and was still in chaos. Naturally, there was no way to give birth to a spirit god. However, cultivators in the real martial realm had already begun to nurture a spirit god, which was also their divine thoughts. So, It was not difficult for Fu Moyan to use his divine thoughts to communicate with the Tianyu. When his divine thoughts touched the Tianyu,
Suddenly,
then he saw the silent heavenly jade tremble slightly. Qin Shujian's illusory figure had already appeared within it. Emperor of Heaven. Fu Moyan was stunned. He did not expect that the Tianyu would directly transform into Qin Shujian's figure. Just as his mind was in shock, Qin Shujian seemed to have seen the surrounding environment and immediately said with a faint smile, "I am not the real Emperor of Heaven. I am just an incarnation of a wisp of power. You can treat me as an NPC who issues tasks. Remember, you must not let the Tianyu be exposed in the real world. Otherwise, even if I take action, I will not be able to protect you. Similarly, if you have any questions about cultivation, you can also ask. If I can answer them, I will naturally answer them for you." Yes, Emperor of Heaven. Fu Moyan was a little excited in his heart. Although this incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven said that he was very useless, only he himself knew how useful the incarnation of the other party's power was. With this incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven in the sea of consciousness, it was equivalent to having an experienced expert. Even if this expert could not exert much strength, it did not matter. Because just that rich cultivation experience alone was an immeasurable treasure. Fu Moyan believed. If he had the guidance of the Emperor of Heaven's incarnation, his cultivation of the Purple Heaven Divine Thunder Scripture would definitely increase greatly. At this moment, the smile of the Emperor of Heaven's incarnation faded a little. You have received benefits from me and have to do things for me. According to the original agreement, you need to help me get rid of some people. May I know who the Emperor of Heaven wants to get rid of? Fu Moyan asked in a deep voice. The incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven did not answer. Instead, he asked, "Does your world have a name?" Originally, there weren't any. However, due to the existence of the player world such as the Great Desolate World, someone in our world named it. What name? Heavenly Wasteland World. The Tianhuang Macro Worlds. The incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven looked puzzled. The naming of a world was not so casual. The naming of any world. There was a reason behind it. Fu Moyan said, "I heard that before the Dharma ending age, the Tianhuang Great World was called the Desolation Era. During the Desolation Era, there was a supreme organization called the Heavenly Alliance. However, due to the fact that the Desolate Great World already existed, the Heavenly Alliance and the Desolate Great World each had a character. Heavenly Alliance. The eyes of the Emperor of Heaven's clone flickered. Although he was the incarnation of Qin Shujian, he had the same memories as Qin Shujian. While chatting with Chu Kuangtu, I once heard from him that he left behind an organization called the Heaven Alliance in the real world. Now, after hearing what Fu Moyan said, the incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven was almost certain that the Heaven Alliance mentioned by Fu Moyan was the Heaven Alliance left behind by Chu Kuangtu. Good heavens! If he knew that the Heaven Alliance he left behind could become the basis for the naming of a world, he would be overjoyed. The incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven secretly complained. However, he did not show any abnormality. The Tianhuang Macro World, that's a good name. He nodded slightly and then said, "When you sink your mind into the Heaven Jade, you can find the target you want to deal with on it. However, due to the limitation of the power of the Tianhuang Macro World, the range of the Heaven Jade's perception is limited. At most, with your body as the starting point, it can perceive the area within a radius of about 10 miles. Therefore, if you want to detect and find a suitable target, you can't stay in one place." Can't stay in one place? Fu Moyan's divine thought trembled. This was a little different from what he had expected. Originally, Fu Moyan thought that it would only take a little time to complete the task. However, if it was like what the incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven said, he would have almost no free time. In this way, there was no way to enter the game. He had some concerns in his heart. Fu Moyan could not help but ask, "If I can't stay in one place, does that mean I can't enter the game?" "Why do you enter the game?" The incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven had a strange look in his eyes, as if he was looking at a fool. It was a sudden question. Fu Moyan's expression froze for a moment. Why do I enter the game? Of course, I'm going in to level up. Only by leveling up in the game could my cultivation speed increase in real life. Although he was already a cultivator at the peak of the god martial arts realm in the game. In real life, the cultivation of the real martial arts realm would greatly increase. However, if he could break through the celestial being realm, or even the true immortal realm, then the increase would be even greater. Just as Fu Moyan was about to speak, the incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven continued. Your purpose of entering the game is to cultivate faster in real life. Now that you have my guidance, how can your cultivation be slow? Besides, you don't need to spend too much time entering the game. As long as you enter regularly, I will naturally give you the corresponding cultivation method, as well as the corresponding crystal stone. When the time comes, you just need to focus on transcending the tribulation and breaking through to the next realm. Moreover, with the 60,000 true immortal merit points that you originally obtained, the resources you exchanged might not be enough to break through to the true immortal realm, but it's almost enough to cultivate to the level of a mighty figure. In that case, why are you in a hurry to enter the game? The words of the incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven. Fu Moyan felt as if he had been enlightened. That's right. Why do I enter the game? Isn't the purpose of entering the game to improve the realm of the game and then cultivate in real life? Now that he had the guidance of the incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven and the support of the Emperor of Heaven in the game, he could directly swallow the experience stone when the time came. There was no need for him to painstakingly fight monsters to level up like before. At this moment, Fu Moyan finally completely changed from his original thinking of a country bumpkin. Until now, he suddenly realized that he was no longer an ordinary player. With the huge backing of the Emperor of Heaven, he was completely different from other players. Fighting monsters to level up. That was already a thing of the past. If he really wanted to level up, he could just swallow the crystal stone. Even if he couldn't swallow the crystal stone, it didn't matter. With the strength of the Emperor of Heaven, he would be able to obtain a huge amount of experience points by casually crippling a true immortal's monster for him to grind. With such a backdoor, it was a complete waste of time to stay up late every day to enter the game to do missions and fight monsters to level up. I was wrong. Fu Moyan's mind calmed down.
Then,
he followed the instructions of the Emperor of Heaven's incarnation and once again sank his divine consciousness into the heavenly jade. Soon, the corresponding information emerged from the heavenly jade. Chapter 769. There was only an illusory map imprinted in Fu Moyan's mind. He glanced at it briefly and recognized the scene on the map. It was his residence. The scene within a radius of 10 miles. But other than the simple scene, there was no extra information presented. The Emperor of Heaven's incarnation said, "Obviously, there is no suitable target within a radius of 10 miles from where you are now. I suggest you change a place. I'll make some preparations." Fu Moyan nodded and then stood up from the futon. He couldn't leave just like that. He still had to make some necessary preparations. He came out of the secret room. Fu Moyan gave a few simple instructions to the nanny, then informed his parents, and then directly left the residence. Although there was no powerful forging master born in the Tianhuang Great World, there was no way to realize the storage ring in the game. However, in any world, as long as one had money, it was enough to run amok. Therefore, what Fu Moyan meant by prepare was that they had to bring enough money before heading out. The outside world was very big. Aircraft could be seen everywhere in an orderly manner. In addition to that, there were even more cultivators who chose to fly in the air. In the past, before the recovery of spirit aura, the human race relied on all kinds of transportation to travel. But now, as long as the spirit aura recovered, as long as the cultivators were strong enough, they would generously rely on flying. Even if there was no way to truly fly because of the limitation of strength. But to a certain extent, it was still not a big problem. If it wasn't for the recovery of spirit aura in your world, it should have taken another path. The Emperor of Heaven's incarnation existed in Fu Moyan's Sea of Consciousness, but he also had a panoramic view of everything in the outside world. It had to be said, the The vast expanse world had made considerable progress in terms of science and technology. In his long memory, he had also reincarnated in a world where there was only pure technology and no cultivation. However, there was a big gap between those worlds that only had technology and the Tianhuang Great World in front of him. Fu Moyan's body and vital essence vibrated. He took a step forward, and his body shot out into the distance. A lot of scenery. They had all disappeared from his side. With the revival of spiritual qi, cultivators can fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. The power they possess is not comparable to that of the past. Without the revival of spiritual qi, the Tianhuang macro world would have no way to compete with other worlds. Upon hearing the words of the Emperor of Heaven's incarnation, Fu Moyan shook his head. In his opinion, the power of science and technology was ultimately limited. There was no way it could be compared to cultivation, not to mention anything else. Just those true martial realm cultivators who had cultivated the internal and external invulnerability realm were able to ignore the attacks of most weapons. If they were able to break through to the spirit god realm and the airborne realm, then they could be said to be extraordinary. In the future, if someone were to break through to the sky human true immortal level, they might not be able to destroy the world with a wave of their hand, but they definitely wouldn't be far off. Therefore, Fu Moyan now scoffed at the original technological power of the Tianhuang Great World. Hearing this, the Emperor of Heaven's clone said calmly, "No system can be underestimated. Regardless of whether it's the cultivation system or the technological system, as long as one reaches the limits, all paths lead to the same destination. You think that the power of science and technology can't be compared to the power of cultivation. It's only because the technological system of the Tianhuang Great World hasn't really reached a peak. Just like the cultivators, if the limit of the cultivators in this world is the true martial realm, how can they compete with technology? Could it be that the Emperor of Heaven has seen the peak of the technological system? I haven't seen it, but although I haven't seen it, I can understand this principle. When you break through to a certain level in the future, you will naturally understand." The Emperor of Heaven's incarnation said in a calm tone. He hadn't really seen the peak of the technological system, but he could also deduce it. As an existence at the Tao fruit level, it wasn't difficult for him to understand the principle that all paths lead to the same destination. Not long after, the heavenly jade vibrated gently. In Fu Moyan's mind, an illusory map appeared, but it was different from before. On the illusory map, there was suddenly a small red, and that red dot was still moving slowly and was about to leave the range of the map. "The target has appeared. Find the location of that red dot," the Emperor of Heaven's incarnation said in a deep voice. Hearing that, Fu Moyan didn't hesitate. He immediately rushed in the direction of the red, according to the map. The two were originally several miles apart, but it didn't take long for this range to be reduced a lot. In the end, Fu Moyan stopped. In front of him, it was a large shopping mall. Many people were going in and out, and that red dot directly stopped at this position. Looking at the crowd in front of him, Fu Moyan looked troubled. "God, there are so many people. How can I find the target?" He originally wanted to say the Emperor of Heaven, but considering the current environment, he stopped in time. Although it wouldn't be a problem even if he directly called the Emperor of Heaven, it might attract the attention of others. He had scruples about his identity as a world trader. Fu Moyan still didn't want too many people to know his secret. Even if it was just a faint suspicion, he didn't want it to appear. The Emperor of Heaven's incarnation said, "If you want to talk to me, you don't have to speak directly. You can just use your divine thought. As for the specific method, I will teach you now." After that, before Fu Moyan could react, an unfamiliar memory appeared in his mind. Not long after, Fu Moyan digested this memory and immediately grasped the method of communicating with divine thought. There were differences in communicating with divine thought. When he used divine thought to communicate with divine thought earlier, he needed to completely calm down and then abandon everything in the outside world. Only when he was fully focused could he use divine thought to communicate with divine thought. Such a method, as long as a cultivator broke through to the spirit god realm, they could use it. The Emperor of Heaven's incarnation teaching him now was equivalent to letting Fu Moyan master this method in advance. The target is here, but Tianyu's power can't be leaked too much, so there's no way to accurately determine who it is. You'd better slowly identify it according to the changes in the red. That's the only way, Fu Moyan replied with his divine thought. At the same time, he was also strolling in the shopping mall, but he didn't leave the range of the red. More than half an hour later, the red finally left its original position. Seeing this, Fu Moyan immediately put down the things in his hand and chased after the red. Not long after, he locked onto a target. It was a middle-aged man in casual clothes. He couldn't tell anything from his face, but Fu Moyan was sure that it was the target he was looking for. For safety's sake, Fu Moyan didn't attack immediately. Instead, he followed behind the man faintly, looking for an opportunity to attack. Chapter 770. On the other side. When Fu Moyan returned to reality with Tianyu, Qin Shu Jian also sensed it. The current him. He was challenging people in the 4 major continents. As long as it was a race with a perfected immortal, regardless of the size of the force, Qin Shu Jian would personally visit them. In less than 10 days. In his inner world, there were already 3 more nomological seeds. The birth of nomological seeds. Not only did it mean that his inner world was perfected, but it also meant that Qin Shu Jian's strength was steadily increasing. Although after breaking through to the 9th level of immortal, pure nomological seeds could only increase one's strength by a limited amount. But no matter how limited it was still a real increase. The nomological seeds have been born. What's left is to let the living beings in the inner world cultivate the nomological seeds and let them grow into towering trees. Only then can my strength have a big breakthrough. Qin Shu Jian thought to himself. The current middle world in his inner world was completely supported by a large number of nomological laws. But, strictly speaking, so far, no nomological laws in his inner world had truly grown to the peak. No nomological laws could compare to the nomological laws of the atmospheric world. Not to mention completely comparable, even 1/10 of it was far from enough. This was because the nomological laws that Qin Shu Jian comprehended when he was a heavenly being were only superficial compared to the original nomological laws of heaven and earth. The nomological seeds that he comprehended later were just seeds. The current inner world. It was equivalent to a pot of seeds that had just sprouted, but it still had a very long way to go before it grew into a towering tree. Similarly, it was almost impossible to rely on a large number of nomological seeds to break through from the inner world to the greater world. Even if it was possible, that kind of Dao fruit was probably the weakest Dao fruit. Therefore, it was not enough to just accumulate nomological seeds. Enough powerhouses had to be born in the inner world to open up the nomological seeds and let the nomological laws grow. However, Qin Shu Jian could not do this now. The only thing he could do was to comprehend the nomological seeds. The rest would be left to the living beings in the inner world. The seeds have been planted in the Tianhuang Great World, but there is not much news about the other great worlds. I have to wait and see. Qin Shu Jian looked into the distance with deep eyes. The power incarnation he left in heavenly jade was connected to his mind. In other words, in the Tianhuang macro world, everything obtained by the incarnation of the Emperor of Heaven would be fed back to the original body. It was not an easy task to connect reality and falsehood. Qin Shu Jian was able to do this. It was also because in the 3rd era, when he was facing life and death, he had comprehended a faint amount of true power. Otherwise, he had no way to plant the power incarnation in Fu Moyan's body. The so-called heavenly jade was just an extremely simple jade talisman. True means, this was the power that Qin Shu Jian had left in the heavenly jade. Kill. The more you kill, the better. Kill all the sons of fate in the Tianhuang macro world. Qin Shu Jian's eyes turned cold. The next second, he had already left and was heading towards the next race. Time waits for no one. Although he could not strengthen the laws, comprehending more laws was always useful. Not to mention breaking through the Dao fruit. Even if he could only enter the half-step Dao fruit level, that would be enough. Otherwise, facing the power of the demon abyss, Qin Shujian was not completely confident. Just as the seed of laws was born, in the inner world, there was also a shocking change. In the sky that was originally normal, a thunder tribulation was formed, and below the thunder tribulation, the mother stream of laws was born. Amidst the mountain range, the builder tree soared into the sky. The law that seemed to have solidified had already landed on his body. At this moment, all the living beings in the inner world were looking at Jianmu. Although they were unable to see what exactly was there, they were able to clearly sense a frightening oppressive might engulfing the area. Is there a living being about to break through to the true immortal realm? A middle-aged man in a green robe was standing on the top of the mountain, looking into the distance with a solemn gaze. As the first human in the world, when Feng was born, he had inherited the memories of the world. He was also very clear about the realm that Qin Shujian had set. However, he had traveled in the inner world for a long time and had fought with many experts, but they were all in the heavenly realm. None of them were qualified to touch the true immortal realm. Now there was someone breaking through to the true immortal realm. It was impossible for Feng to say that he did not have any thoughts at all. Not long after, the thunder tribulation had already fallen. The terrifying power of the thunder tribulation, even if they were hundreds of millions of miles away, made the expressions of those experts change. Thunder tribulation. This is the thunder tribulation for breaking through to the true immortal realm. Rumor has it that there are a total of 3 systems for breaking through to the true immortal realm, but only the physical sanctification system will encounter the thunder tribulation when breaking through. It seems that that person is going on the second system. Feng's expression kept changing. High-grade evolution of heaven and earth, mid-grade physical sanctification, low-grade nomological Tao. If there was a choice, he naturally wanted to take the best route. But there was one thing to understand. Knowing what path to take did not necessarily mean that one would be able to take it. For example, the evolution of heaven and earth system. Feng knew that this system was the best way to break through, but he had no idea how to evolve heaven and earth. Not to mention evolving heaven and earth. Even if it was physical sanctification and nomological Tao, he did not have any experience to speak of. Because heaven and earth had never given birth to a true immortal, there was no reference to speak of. There was only an illusory realm there. Doing so, it was equivalent to opening up a path for oneself. One could imagine how difficult it was. Right now, there was an expert who walked the physical sanctification system and attracted the thunder tribulation. Regardless of whether the other party succeeded in breaking through, at least it could let Feng have a glimpse of the path ahead. Rumble, shocking thunder resounded, causing the hearts of the living beings in the inner world to tremble. It was normal thunder. It should not have spread so far. But at this moment, when the thunder fell, it was as if it was supported by the power of heaven and earth, causing the heaven and earth to shake. Thunder tribulations. Jianmu looked at the thunder tribulation falling from above, and there was no fear in his heart. The spirit qi in the heaven and earth swarmed and condensed, forming a bright green barrier that covered him inside. Boom! The thunder tribulation bombarded, shaking the green barrier violently.
Then,
the overflowing thunder fell along the green barrier and landed on Jianmu. In an instant, Jianmu's originally dark body was quietly dyed with a faint purple color. And as the thunder fell more and more, the purple color also became more intense. In the purple-black color, there was a faint Dao rune circulating. Chapter 771. Jianmu was transcending the tribulation.
It was a very common thing.
Qin Shujian had already sensed at the moment he transcended the tribulation. Regarding this, he had no intention of interfering. As the first living creature in the true sense of the inner world, the builder tree had been blessed by the heavens since its birth. In terms of foundation, in fact, he was not weaker than Emperor Zhao and Xiao Chengfeng in the great wide world. To a certain extent, he had a tendency to surpass them. Although the immortal ascension tribulation was powerful, in Qin Shujian's opinion, it could not do anything to Jianmu. Taking a step back, if Jianmu really failed to transcend the tribulation despite having such an advantage, it could only prove that he was not worthy of being nurtured. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, Qin Shujian had no reason to interfere. Although Jianmu is on the path of physical sanctification, it's still a good thing that he can become an immortal. At least he can guide the way forward for other living beings and let them know how to become a true immortal. To be honest, compared to physical sanctification, Qin Shujian was more willing to let the living beings in the inner world walk the path of nomological Tao. Because the nomological Tao system was the real way to nurture the inner world. The system that evolved the inner world was to remove oneself from the inner world and become an independent existence. The physical sanctification system was equivalent to the thief of the inner world. Of course, the so-called thieves were only thieves to a certain extent. No matter what, Jianmu was a living being born in the inner world and was closely related to the inner world. As long as his strength increased, the inner world could capture the overflowing power and deepen the foundation of the inner world. After all, the strength of the inner world. It was not enough to have powerful rules, but it also had to have a matching living being. Otherwise, such an inner world would just be an empty shell. And when necessary, as the ruler of the inner world, Qin Shujian could also borrow the power of the living beings in the inner world for his own use. It won't be long before other true immortals are born in the inner world. The birth of true immortals. It would allow the foundation of the inner world to experience an explosive growth. Such a good thing, Qin Shujian had no reason to refuse. Shortly after, he collected his thoughts and looked at the true immortal in front of him. Greetings, Emperor of Heaven. Mu Ling Huang was trembling a little. Qin Shujian's sudden visit gave him a lot of pressure. For no reason at all. Why did this Emperor of Heaven not stay in the heavenly court and come to Eldarwood? Now that the 10,000 races were united, even if Eldarwood had some grudges with the human race, the other party should not have come to settle the score. Because there were so many races that were against the human race. However, after the establishment of the heavenly court, he had never heard of the Emperor of Heaven taking revenge on anyone. However, even so, right now, Mu Ling Huang was feeling a little apprehensive. Mu Ling Huang, there's no need to be nervous. We didn't come here to cause trouble for you. We have something that we need your help with. Qin Shujian could tell what Mu Ling Huang was thinking at a glance. Then he spoke calmly. Would Eldar's rule? He already had it. However, what Mu Ling Huang followed was not a simple Would Eldar rule. It was the Would Eldar's Emperor rule. This was something that Qin Shujian did not have. Seriously speaking, actually, Would Eldar and Eldar sounded very similar, but they were two completely different races. Would Eldar was a race that was born from the wood spirits of heaven and earth. They belonged to the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Eldar was the spiritual intelligence of plants and trees. There was a fundamental difference between the two. The inner world could give birth to living beings on the premise that the 5 elements of heaven and earth, as well as the power of yin and yang, were perfect. Therefore, Qin Shujian did not lack the wood spirit rule. What he lacked was Mu Ling Huang's rule. Emperor of Heaven, what orders do you have? Feel free to speak your mind. Mu Ling Huang was stunned for a moment before he replied respectfully. It's very simple. I hope that Mu Ling Huang can fight with me in the long river of rules, regardless of the outcome. Emperor of Heaven, please spare my life. Mu Ling Huang's legs went soft and he almost knelt down. A battle in the long river of rules. The other party wanted his life. Mu Ling Huang was confident that after he broke through to the true immortal realm, his strength was strong enough. However, he was also clear about the gap between his strength and Qin Shujian's. A level 1 immortal. An upper level 3 true immortal. The latter did not need to spend much effort to kill the former. At this moment, Mu Ling Huang did not care about his face anymore. Anyway, there was only him and Qin Shujian in the hall. There was nothing embarrassing about admitting defeat. Seeing how he almost knelt down, Qin Shu Jian was also speechless. Don't worry, I'm just sparring with you. I won't take your life. Moreover, if I really want to kill you, who can stop me, Eldar Mu? Qin Shu Jian's words were straightforward, but the meaning was also very obvious. After a short moment of panic, Mu Ling Huang came back to his senses. Is what Emperor of Heaven said true? I've always kept my word. Qin Shu Jian's face revealed a smile that he thought was gentle. Seeing this, Mu Ling Huang's heart, which had been hanging in the air, calmed down a little. As long as it was not to settle scores and take his life, it was fine. As for the rest, he could accept it. Let's go. Enter your Mu Ling Huang's rule battle. Qin Shu Jian did not want to waste time. Mu Ling Huang nodded. He stretched out his hand and tore the void. Mu Ling Huang's rule loomed. Then, he stepped into the crack in the void and disappeared from the hall. Just as Mu Ling Huang entered the crack, Qin Shu Jian also entered the crack. Mu Ling Huang's rule. After the long river of rules sensed that there was an outsider invading, it immediately surged with stormy waves. However, those waves were no threat to Qin Shu Jian at all. No matter how the waves rose, just as they were about to touch him, they seemed to be pressed down by an invisible hand and fell back into the river below. Seeing this scene, Mu Ling Huang's pupils contracted slightly. As the controller of the rules, he knew what kind of resistance would be encountered when an outsider intruded. However, the counterattack of the long river of rules did not make Qin Shu Jian reveal any clues. Such strength, the shock in the depths of the Wood Spirit Emperor's heart grew even stronger. Qin Shu Jian stood with his hands behind his back and said calmly, Mu Ling Huang, go ahead. Don't hold back. As long as you can let me gain something from this battle, it's enough. In the future, if the Heavenly Court can condense a new deity position, Eldar Mu will also have a chance to be conferred a deity position. Conferred a deity position. Mu Ling Huang's pupils suddenly contracted again. Qin Shu Jian's words completely ignited the excitement in his heart. Even if the chance of getting a deity position was very slim, there was still hope no matter what. Suddenly, Mu Ling Huang cupped his hands. Emperor of Heaven, please enlighten me. Make your move. Excuse me. With that, Mu Ling Huang took the lead. Chapter 772. The two of them were fighting in the long river of laws. Although Mu Ling Huang had just stepped into the first-level immortal realm, he was not weak in terms of strength. After all, Mu Ling Huang's laws. He stood out from the Wood Spirit Law, and was above the Wood Spirit Law. As for the Wood Spirit Law, as the law of the 5 elements of heaven and earth, it was an extremely powerful one. Therefore, the strength of the Wood Spirit Emperor was evident from this. If not for the fact that Mu Eldar's overall strength was weak, he would be qualified to join the ranks of the big clans and not be like now, where he could only be at the standard of a middle-level clan. Boom! The two bodies collided with each other and separated abruptly. Qin Shu Jian sealed 99% of his power, leaving only a little power to fight with Mu Ling Huang. Mu Ling Huang's law. To a certain extent, it was much more difficult to comprehend than other ordinary laws. Because of the law of the emperor of a clan, not everyone could comprehend it. If one was also a wood spirit, it would be much easier to comprehend Mu Ling Huang's law. However, if an outsider tried to forcefully comprehend Mu Ling Huang's law, the difficulty would increase exponentially. Therefore, after 3 days of fighting, Qin Shu Jian only had a slight understanding in his heart. However, it was not so easy to completely comprehend Mu Ling Huang's law and nurture a law seed in his inner world. He gained something from the battle. It was not just Qin Shu Jian, even Mu Ling Huang himself had gained a lot. After breaking through to the perfected immortal realm, every step forward required a huge opportunity. As a 9th-level immortal powerhouse, Qin Shu Jian, even if he suppressed his strength, endless Dao runes appeared in his every move. Regarding this, the Wood Spirit Emperor also understood. After understanding the benefits of fighting with this Emperor of Heaven, Mu Ling Huang worked even harder. After all, there were such benefits. It wasn't something that could happen every time. Under normal circumstances, if he really fought with such a level of existence, not to mention a few days and nights, he would be considered lucky if he was not killed in a second.
Just like now.
Qin Shi Jian suppressed his strength to fight with him. For the Wood Spirit Emperor, this was the best thing that could happen. Time passed bit by bit. Even if Qin Shi Jian suppressed most of his strength, he still gradually suppressed Mu Ling Huang. The longer the battle lasted. With regards to the comprehension of the laws, he also had a deeper understanding.
Suddenly,
his inner world shook slightly. Qin Shi Jian unsealed his powers in an instant and suppressed the Wood Spirit Emperor. His terrifying powers tore through the restraints of the River of Rules.
Then,
the two figures completely disappeared in the long River of Laws. Wood Spirit Clan's main hall. Qin Shi Jian and Mu Ling Huang's figures until they came out of the long River of Laws. Mu Ling Huang's eyes were still in a daze. He was completely unable to react to what had happened. After half a breath, Mu Ling Huang's sluggish mind completely returned to normal, and then he bowed. Emperor of Heaven's means are earth-shattering. Ben Huang is sincerely convinced. Mu Ling Huang, you're too polite. I have other things to do, so I won't stay any longer. After comprehending Mu Ling Huang's laws, Qin Shi Jian was in a good mood. After saying that, his body suddenly disappeared on the spot. When Mu Ling Huang straightened up, he found that Qin Shi Jian had left without him knowing. The taboos in the entire hall did not have any effect. Mu Ling Huang could not help but sigh. Emperor of Heaven's strength is not something we can guess. At this moment, in his inner world, Mu Ling Huang's laws were born. At the same time, the thunder tribulation that fell was almost at its end. The originally lush giant tree had now become withered and yellow under the thunder tribulation, as if it had failed to pass the tribulation. But if one felt it seriously, one could find it. Under the withered and yellow surface, there was a strong vitality emerging. That vitality, from the original weak to the strong, and then to the earth-shattering. Crack! A crisp sound came from the withered tree.
Then,
the skin of the withered tree cracked open, and bright and rich vitality overflowed from it. The other plants that had fallen into silence because of the thunder tribulation were now covered by this rich vitality, and they were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. The skin of the withered tree fell off. Then, a giant tree rose from the ground and instantly disappeared into the sky. The giant tree that was 1,000,000 feet tall could be said to be indomitable. The dense and lush branches and leaves spread out like a huge canopy, covering the long mountain range. At the same time, vast power spread out. Golden flowers scattered in the sky. Golden lotuses surged out of the ground. In addition, there was also purple chi 30,000 miles from the east, mighty and mighty. When all kinds of strange phenomena appeared, the giant tree's voice was heard, and it instantly fell into every corner of the world. I am Jianmu, and from today onwards, I will establish the Eldar. All plants in the world that have spiritual intelligence will be Eldar. As soon as it finished speaking, the world shook. The vast purple chi bombarded down, and it directly raised Jianmu's aura. When he broke through, he had just stepped into the ranks of the first-level immortal, but now, with the infusion of the purple chi, he directly stabilized at the first-level immortal, and the remaining power kept rising. Second-level immortal. Third-level immortal. Boom! Finally, there was an earth-shattering sound, and a long river of laws surged. Jianmu successfully broke the shackles of the lower 3 levels of True Immortal, and not only did he step into the middle 3 levels of True Immortal, but he also completely stabilized at the 4th level of True Immortal. At the same time, the plants in the world seemed to be nourished in different ways. Some of the more powerful plants even directly gave birth to spiritual intelligence and became members of the Eldar. As the first emperor of the Eldar, Jianmu also felt the changes in the Eldar in the world. There was naturally no need to say much about the joy in his heart. For him, breaking through to the true immortal, establishing the Eldar, and the birth of other Eldar, it could be said that it was 3 consecutive blessings. At this time in the mountain range where Jianmu was located, There was also a large number of plants that gave birth to spiritual intelligence. The moment these plants gave birth to spiritual intelligence, their branches and leaves swayed, as if they were on a pilgrimage. Greetings, Ling Huang. Neat and uniform voices sounded in the mountain range. The Eldar born in the world all did the same thing. On the same day, the name of Ling Huang and Jianmu completely spread out, and all the living beings in the world remembered it. Eldar, Ling Huang, Jianmu. On the mountain peak, Feng took a few deep breaths. When the other party had ascended to immortality, the vast aura that had spread out made him have the urge to prostrate himself in worship. For the first time, Feng truly felt how big the gap between a true immortal and a celestial was. In front of that power, he felt as if he was nothing more than an ant. However, in addition to the influence of Jianmu's tribulation to become an immortal, the other party establishing the Eldar and the subsequent fluctuations also made Feng have some other thoughts in his heart. Chapter 773. Is this an Eldar's? Feng looked not far in front of him. There was a stalk of dark green grass swaying in the wind. It was a powerful thought. It rose from the grass, making it impossible for people to ignore it. Before the Eldar was truly born, he did not understand what an Eldar was. But with the establishment of the Eldar, Feng understood now. What kind of living being could be classified as an Eldar? Eldar, there are so many plants in the world. If all the plants that have gained sentience can be classified as the spirit race, then the number of spirit race is a bit too much. Feng looked at the grass and did not move.
Being stared at by him.
The green grass that had just gained sentience was also trembling. As an Eldar that had just been born, the strength of this grass was only at the true martial realm. In terms of strength, it was completely at the bottom of the world. At this moment, being stared at by a powerful expert, it could be imagined how much pressure it was under. Just as the green grass was shivering, a voice rang out. Feng slowly retracted his gaze. He did not have the intention to attack a true martial realm Eldar. In his eyes, a true martial realm Eldar was no different from an ant. Moreover, an Eldar had just become an immortal. It was not a wise choice to rashly attack an Eldar. If he angered the Eldar Emperor, Feng did not have the confidence to contend against him. This time, Ling Huang's tribulation to become an immortal has allowed me to see the path ahead. It's just that walking the physical body saint system will cause lightning tribulation to descend when becoming an immortal. If the physical body is not strong enough, the success rate of the tribulation will be much lower. It seems that I need to think of a way to temper my physical body. Feng's expression changed. As the first living being born in the world, he was qualified to see the imprints of the world. The scene of Jianmu's tribulation had already been recorded by the world.
So,
Feng could also take this opportunity to comprehend the mysteries of the other party's tribulation to become an immortal. It could be said that Jianmu's ascension to immortality had opened a door for the other living beings. Before the first living being became an immortal, true immortality was like a locked door to them. He wanted to open the door and comprehend the mysteries within, but he couldn't find the key. Now, Jianmu had become an immortal. It was equivalent to opening the lock on the door and helping them open the door. In this way, the difficulty of ascending to immortality in the future would be greatly reduced. Feng already had a rough idea of what he should do in the future. Ever since he understood the physical establishing sage system, he had never thought of walking down the path of nomological Dao validation. After all, in terms of strength, living beings who walked the path of physical sanctification would be much more powerful than those who walked the path of nomological Dao verification. In this world, all the plants and trees that are born with sentience belong to the Eldar. However, ever since I was born, I have been the only one who has existed. In comparison, I am much lonelier. When Feng thought of Eldar, he sighed in his heart. Ever since he was born, he had traveled a lot between heaven and earth. However, other than when he was just born and saw Qin Shu Jian who was similar to him, he had never seen another living being that looked exactly like him. If Eldar didn't appear, it would be fine. But with the appearance of Eldar, Feng's heart also had some slight changes. Since Eldar can be born, why don't I create a human race? But even if I create a human race, what's the use? In the end, there will only be me. Unless there can be other humans born. It was undoubtedly a difficult thing for other humans to be born. Feng didn't have any other ideas at the moment. When this idea was born in his mind, there was a voice in the dark telling him that this was the right thing to do. However, what exactly should he do? Feng didn't know. For a moment, he sat down on the peak of the mountain and fell into deep thought. Spring went and autumn came. A year passed, but Feng still sat there without moving. Finally, his absent-minded eyes gradually focused, and his sitting body finally stood up. His body shook slightly. All the filth on his body dissipated.
Sigh.
A long sigh came from Feng's mouth. After thinking hard for a year, he still couldn't think of a way to give birth to more humans. Feng also understood. If he continued to sit there, not to mention a year, even if 10 years or 100 years, there wouldn't be any results. Therefore, he didn't plan to waste any more time here. He stood up from the peak of the mountain. Feng directly flew into the sky and left. If he couldn't find a way to create humans here, then he would look at another place. Since the premonition in the dark told him that it was right, then his idea must not be wrong. He didn't succeed now. He could only say that he didn't find the right method. In the remaining time, Feng walked around the mountains and rivers, silently comprehending the heaven and earth. While increasing his own strength, he also looked for a way to create humans. In the inner hall of the heavenly palace, on the throne, Qin Shu Jian paid close attention to the changes in the inner world. Whether it was Jianmu's tribulation to become an immortal or the subsequent changes, none of it escaped his eyes and ears. Among them, more of his attention fell on Feng. Perhaps it was because he was also a human. Qin Shu Jian paid more attention to Feng, who was also a human. From Feng's every move, he was almost certain that it was about time for the human race in the inner world to be officially born. They hadn't been born yet. It was only a matter of time. The simplest way for the human race to be born is to mold the earth to create humans, but I still can't interfere too much with the specifics. Looking at the confused Feng in the inner world, Qin Shu Jian resisted the urge to give some pointers. The heaven and earth revolved. Naturally, there was a pattern. If he interfered without permission, it would have the intention of spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm. Moreover, if he personally gave pointers, even if Feng created the human race in the future, then the benefits he would receive wouldn't be as much as before. This was the opportunity to be the first human in the world. Qin Shu Jian also didn't want to spoil it. Withdrawing his consciousness from his inner world, he focused his attention on himself. In more than a year, I have comprehended all the laws of the true immortals born in the myriad races. The number of law seeds in the inner world has also increased by almost 1,000. In a short period of time, the number of true immortals born in the myriad races has almost reached the limit. If I want to break this limit, I will need a certain amount of time. Breaking through to the true immortal realm wasn't just about having enough resources, but also the comprehension of laws. The fact that the myriad races could produce more than 1,000 true immortals had completely exceeded Qin Shu Jian's expectations. If there were more in the future, the difficulty of the laws would increase greatly. Therefore, to him, he had already harvested most of the wool that could be harvested. The remaining matters were waiting for the seeds to take root and sprout. Chapter 774. In the outer realm, there was a floating continent. There was a black shadow crawling on the continent. From afar, it emitted an aura that made one's heart palpitate. So many void demons. When Chao Hong looked at the floating continent, his eyes were also filled with shock. Beside him, it was a few players in the team. After exploring the outer realm for so long, other than some stars, we have never encountered any land. Could this be the base camp of the void demons? Lu Qinghong's expression was also nervous. The base camp of the void demons meant that there were a large number of powerful void demons. By relying on their own strength, they would be able to do so. If they were discovered, they would definitely die. However, in addition to being nervous, Lu Qinghong was also excited. According to the mission issued by the Heavenly Court, if we can find the base camp of the Void Demons, we will be rewarded with 10,000 true immortal merit points. Hearing that, the other players also had excited expressions on their faces. 10,000 true immortal merit points. Even if it was divided among several people, everyone would be able to get a lot. With such a number of true immortal merit points, it was enough for them to raise their realm to the celestial realm, and it was not as simple as an ordinary celestial realm. Chao Hong swallowed his saliva, then looked at the others and said, "Leave a mark, and then remember the landmarks. Let's retreat." All right. Several players nodded. Then someone began to leave his mark in the void, as well as record the current landmarks. Although the outer realm was similar everywhere. But after leaving a mark, it would not be difficult to distinguish it in the future. While talking, Chao Hong also left his mark on the spot, as well as the landmarks. Everyone's mark and landmarks were somewhat different. Multiple personal records. The purpose was to not make any mistakes. Moreover, even if a mark was discovered by the Void Demons and then erased, they could rely on the other marks to find this place again. To be honest, Chao Hong himself did not expect that just by exploring the outer realm to see if there was a chance to kill some outer realm demons, he would accidentally encounter the enemy's base camp. Even if he was not completely sure now. But he knew. Even if the continent in front of him was not the base camp of the Void Demons, it was definitely an important place. If he went back and sold the information to the Heavenly Court, there would be many benefits. On the mainland, 2 beams of light suddenly appeared on the throne that was like a black shadow. Immediately, they cut through the void and looked outside the continent. "A little bug is coming." Yerwei's cold voice resounded in the hall. His tone was cold. There was no trace of emotion in it. He hadn't thought that someone would still be able to evade the Moxiaro clan's defenses and find their way here. Just now, if the other party had not sent out a weak wave of energy, even Yelvis almost didn't discover it. At this moment, Chao Hong had just left the coordinates in the void. All of a sudden, he felt a terrifying wave of energy. That wave of energy caused his heart to tremble. Chao Hong was not the only one. Everyone else was trembling as well. The space around them froze and froze them in place. The next moment, a huge hand shattered the void. Chao Hong and the others didn't even have time to resist before they were easily destroyed by this force, along with the destroyed ones, and the marks they left behind. After simply wiping out Chao Hong and the others, Yelvis slowly withdrew his palm.
Done.
Longfellow also woke up from absorbing the energy of the void. Yelvis's expression was indifferent. "It's done. But a few ants of the god martial arts realm were able to sneak into our clan. The clansmen of those strongholds are at fault. If we don't punish them, it won't be enough to convince the masses. Do what you think should be done." Longfellow shook his head. Even if Yelvis killed all those demons of the void, he wouldn't object. No matter how many demons there were, they were no different from ants in his eyes. As for saying that they were of the same clan, that was even more ridiculous. At the level of the Demon Emperor, the so-called friendship of the same clan had already been indifferent to the extreme. Countless years of precipitation. Many of his emotions had completely disappeared.
So,
if Yelvis wanted to kill them, Longfellow wouldn't stop him, because there was no need.
yes.
Yelvis didn't talk much about this topic. Instead, he changed the topic and said, "Have you noticed that the creatures of the vast thousand domains also seem to have the trait of being immortal? As early as in the battle, when the barrier between heaven and earth was opened in the vast thousand domains, Ben Huang killed many perfected immortals. However, in the second battle, Ben Huang encountered those perfected immortals who had been killed. Is it possible that you've mistaken them for someone else?" Longfellow frowned. Immortal and indestructible. Even the Demon Emperor couldn't be immortal and indestructible. What qualifications did some Demon King-level perfected immortals have to be immortal and indestructible? Yelvis said, "It's impossible to mistake them for someone else. You should understand that at our level, Even the slightest change can't be hidden from Ben Huang's eyes. Moreover, the few ants that Ben Huang killed just now didn't leave behind their corpses. Even the spiritual deity couldn't capture them. It was as if there was some mysterious power protecting them. Hearing this, Longfellow's expression immediately became solemn. The protection of a mysterious power, an existence that could snatch the spiritual deity from Yelvis's hands, was probably at least at the demon emperor level, although the other party didn't reveal his strength. However, in Longfellow's opinion, even if Yelvis's strength hadn't broken through to the demon emperor level, it wasn't much different. Could it be that the Emperor of Heaven left some life-saving means on the creatures of the vast thousand domains? The so-called immortal and indestructible is actually taking away the spiritual deity at the moment of their death. As long as the spiritual deity isn't destroyed, the creatures whose physical bodies are destroyed can be restored. Longfellow calmly analyzed. Although he didn't understand the characteristics of the players and the existence of the investiture of the gods, he could still speculate some things from Yelvis's words. After all, not everyone could be immortal and indestructible. In the vast void, only the demons of the demon abyss were qualified to be immortal and indestructible. Moreover, that kind of immortality wasn't absolute. If they met their nemesis, they would still die. The demons of the demon abyss aren't really immortal and indestructible. There should be some kind of protective means left on these people by some expert. Right now, the strongest person in the vast thousand domains is the Emperor of Heaven, so there shouldn't be any mistake. You can't really kill them, maybe because there isn't a suitable way. In the end, Longfellow added another sentence. Find a suitable way. The so-called immortal and indestructible would no longer exist. Chapter 775. Maybe. Yelvis's expression was still solemn. That mysterious power made his heart palpitate a little. Originally, Yelvis planned to kill Chao Hong and the others, and then pull out the spirit god to search their souls. In this way, he could extract all the memories in the other party's mind. Although the spirit god could also directly extract the memories, it was rare for experts to do so. After all, there was a certain risk in the spirit god's possession. No matter how strong the person was, it was impossible to succeed in the possession with a 100% success rate. Once the possession failed, even the existence of the Devil Emperor had no way to resist the consequences of death.
So,
Yelvis didn't have the idea of possession. He just wanted to extract the spirit god of Chao Hong and the others, and then slowly search their souls and plunder their memories. But what he didn't expect was, the other party's spirit god was protected by a mysterious power, and he couldn't take it. It was just that when the spirit god of Chao Hong and the others escaped, Yelvis felt a little lucky. He was glad that he didn't take the risk of possession. Or else, in front of that mysterious power, he didn't have the confidence to contend. On the other side, a white light appeared in the city, and Chao Hong and the others had already appeared there. At this moment, they all had a blank look on their faces. The previous death was too much of a breakthrough. Until now, they hadn't completely reacted. After a long while, they barely came back to their senses. Chao Hong swallowed his saliva, and his voice was still trembling. The one who attacked before was the Devil Emperor of the Ma Xiaoluo clan. On the system interface, he could see who killed him. Yelvis, the Devil Emperor of the Ma Xiaoluo clan. Since the war between the Heavenly Court and the Void Evil Demon clan, the famous experts of the several clans were also known by others.
So,
Chao Hong was no stranger to the name Yelvis. It's not a loss to die in the hands of the Devil Emperor. Although we dropped a level, we still recorded the landmarks. Unfortunately, the imprint was erased. Lu Qinghong shook his head. It doesn't matter if the imprint is erased, as long as the landmarks are still there, Chao Hong said in a deep voice. The landmarks were the main thing, and the imprint was only an auxiliary function. Without the imprint, and only the landmarks, they could also find the Ma Xiaoluo clan, but the process would be more troublesome. Immediately, the few of them went to the Heavenly Court branch. Since he had found the Ma Xiaoluo clan, he had to submit the mission. Moreover, such a quest was unique. If another party submitted it, they would not be able to submit the same quest. Therefore, Chao Hong and the others did not dare to waste any more time. If someone else really snatched it from him, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Heavenly Court. After plucking all the wool from the myriad races, Qin Shujian had been cultivating in the Heavenly Court. He only had one goal, and that was to improve his strength as much as possible. However, no new true immortals were born. If he wanted to increase his strength, he could only start from the mother stream. During this period of time, Qin Shujian entered the mother stream of precepts almost continuously, searching for suitable precepts to comprehend. The stronger he was, the stronger he was. The obstructions one would encounter in the mother stream would also be stronger. Every time he entered, it was accompanied by great risk. After simply recovering from his injuries, Qin Shujian had intended to enter the mother stream of precepts again to comprehend the new precepts. Without waiting for him to move, he sensed an intense nomological fluctuation coming from the Heavenly Court. Someone is about to become an immortal. Qin Shujian's heart skipped a beat, and in the next instant, he left the inner hall. In the outer hall, the osmanthus tree grew crazily, and the original flower buds had all bloomed. The refreshing fragrance soaked the entire Heavenly Court. The mother stream of precepts trembled faintly. It swept out like a painting, and in the blink of an eye, it crossed the sky. On the osmanthus tree's body, there was a dense rule lingering around it, and the sound of rushing and rumbling could be heard endlessly. Emperor of Heaven, I'm about to become an immortal. The osmanthus tree trembled, and Mu Yang's voice came from inside. His tone was as calm as ever, but now that one listened carefully, one could hear the unconcealable joy. Qin Shujian nodded. Go, this is your opportunity. Yes. As soon as Mu Yang finished speaking, the osmanthus tree completely pulled out of the Heavenly Court, and immediately after, it sank into the mother stream of precepts. Not long after, the mother stream of precepts shook. An osmanthus tree crashed out of the mother stream, directly opening up a long river of precepts. Such a change. It also attracted the attention of the immortals and gods of the Heavenly Court. Right now, the power of the stars was rich, so it was not strange for powerhouses of the myriad clans to become immortals. But if there were powerhouses in the Heavenly Court who became immortals, then it was worth paying attention to. Those immortals with deity positions were fine. Although it attracted their attention when a cultivator became an immortal, they were not too shocked. However, this was not the case for the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. After all, no matter how strong the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals were, they were only cultivators of the celestial realm. A true immortal, even the weakest true immortal, was an existence worthy of their admiration. Therefore, one could imagine the shock caused by a powerhouse becoming an immortal. That's Mu Yang. Now that Qin Yuanbai, who was a heavenly general, saw the existence who opened up the long river of precepts, there was a look of surprise in his eyes. As the current sacred lord of the Qianyuan sacred ground, how could he not know Mu Yang? And it was not as simple as just knowing him. Before Mu Yang left the Qianyuan sacred ground, Qin Yuanbai and Mu Yang had a lot of exchanges. But what he did not expect was Mu Yang could become an immortal one step ahead of him. Compared to himself, who was still unable to take that step, Qin Yuanbai's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Without comparison, there would be no harm. Everyone was from the Qianyuan sacred ground. Strictly speaking, Mu Yang was his junior. However, a junior had walked ahead of him. It was easy to imagine how he felt right now. Mu Yang has become an immortal. It's time for the Eldar to officially rise. In the eastern continent, in the imperial city of Zhongzhou, Emperor Zhao looked up at Mu Yang in the sky. His expression did not change much. Now that true immortals had been born in all clans, it could be said that the decline after the ancient times had gradually eased. Not counting the races that had been destroyed, the Eldar was probably the weakest race now. All the plants in the world, as long as they had spiritual wisdom, were classified as Eldar. On this basis, it also indirectly proved that the Eldar would not really be destroyed. However, since the ancient times had been destroyed, the Eldar had not produced any decent powerhouses. 200,000 years ago, the Eldar had collapsed and there was no way for them to be unified again. In this case, the Eldar existed in name only. But now that Muyang had become an immortal, it meant that the Eldar had finally produced its first true immortal after 1,000,000 years. At this moment, Muyang had become an immortal. It would also be noticed by the Eldar of the 4 major continents. It would not be long before the Eldar of the 4 major continents came to look for their emperors. When that time came, the Eldar, who had disappeared for a long time, should reappear in the 4 major continents. Chapter 776. After taking a few simple glances, Emperor Zhao retracted his gaze. Below him, the officials of the great Zhao dynasty stood quietly. Ever since the establishment of the Heavenly Court, the 10,000 races had been unified. However, it did not mean that the original system of the various races would completely disappear. The establishment of the Heavenly Court. It was purely to unify the 10,000 races and fight against foreign enemies at the same time. In fact, the order that the various races should have still needed the original system to maintain. After all, there were only so many immortals in the Heavenly Court. It was impossible to rely on these immortals to maintain the order of the various races. As a result, in the human race, there were no changes in the imperial court of the great Zhao dynasty. As the current human emperor, Emperor Zhao spent most of his time cultivating in the Heavenly Court. The rest of his time was spent returning to the Eastern continent to deal with the corresponding affairs of the imperial court. Fortunately, now that the Heavenly Court had been established, there was also the invasion of the evil demon clan in the void. There was no chaos in the human race either. Even if Emperor Zhao was not always in charge of the Eastern continent, the people in the imperial court were enough to maintain the stability of the human race. There would not be any major chaos. If there's anything to report, the court is dismissed. Emperor Zhao's dignified voice sounded. Immediately, the officials also completely recovered from the influence of Muyang's ascension. Dan Hao cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, half a year ago, there were many strange movements in the sea area of the Eastern Pattern Prefecture. Ferocious beasts that rarely appeared in the past have appeared frequently in the periphery. In addition, natural disasters have also appeared frequently in the sea area. And those natural disasters seem to be of the same kind. They are like fire clouds. All the humans who come into contact with the natural disasters, regardless of their strength, directly die. Because of this, there are many people who dare to enter the sea area to explore." When talking about the sea area, the others also had solemn expressions. Now that the human race was powerful, there was almost no place in the 4 great continents that could stop the human race. There were only 2 places. The human race did not dare to easily enter. One was Heavenly Abyss, and the other was the sea area. Heavenly Abyss existed in the Western continent and had little to do with the human race. However, the sea area existed in the Eastern continent. It was equivalent to a time bomb that could explode at any time. Even if there were many powerful experts in the human race now, no one dared to easily enter. Because, over the years, it was not that there were no experts of the human race who entered the sea area, but most of them had died in front of natural disasters and ferocious beasts. There were very few people who could return alive. It could be said, those who could cultivate to this level were not fools. Without seeing the practical benefits, it was impossible to rashly enter the sea to die. It was fine at first. As the strength of the human race increased, many people became arrogant. But now that so many experts had fallen, the other people's inflated hearts calmed down once again. Emperor Zhao's expression didn't change. There's a supreme being in the depths of the Dead Sea region, but the sea region is an unbreakable seal for that being. Those ferocious beasts were born in the sea region, so there are restrictions on them. Unless it was a last resort, dire beasts would not leave the sea without permission. As for natural disasters in the sea, they would only appear in the sea because that was the rule. He ordered all humans not to approach the sea region without permission to avoid dying for no reason. At the same time, Mobilize the army to guard the East Pattern Mansion to prevent the ferocious beasts from leaving the sea and attacking the human territory. Yes, sir. The officials bowed. Emperor Zhao continued, aside from that sealed existence in the ocean of death, there are also many powerful ferocious beasts. Not to mention the celestial being realm, there are also many true immortal realm beasts. All of you must remember my words. In order to prevent others from not knowing the dangers of the ocean of death, Emperor Zhao reminded them again. Regarding the sea region, there was a great fear in his heart. Even though he had broken through to the 3rd level of the true immortal realm, Emperor Zhao was not confident that he could fight against the existence in the depths of the ocean of death, because it was an expert that even the ancient Emperor of Heaven was afraid of. Even the current heaven and earth. In his opinion, he might not be able to fight against the existence in the depths of the ocean of death. As for the riot in the sea region, Emperor Zhao was not worried. Not to mention the existence of the heavenly court, the current strength of the human race alone was enough to deal with the ferocious beasts in the ocean of death. The premise was, the existence in the depths of the sea should not break the seal and come out. But in Emperor Zhao's opinion, there was no possibility of the other party breaking the seal and coming out.
Soon.
Emperor Zhao's order was passed down.
Then.
A large number of troops were mobilized to the East Pattern Mansion. The fishing villages in the East Pattern Mansion near the sea region had all been moved to other places. And the imperial court had also established a strong defense line here. At this moment, Muyang had also successfully reached the end of the long river of laws. There was a law monument standing there. Looking at the law monument in front of him, Muyang hesitated for a moment, then bombarded it with the rattan branches, and the violent power poured on the law monument. Boom! The law monument shook violently. When it was impacted, the entire long river of laws also trembled violently. Another expert, who didn't take the traditional system to become an immortal, the true immortals of the myriad races raised their heads and saw the scene of Muyang bombarding the law monument. He shattered the law monument. Then, he cut off a section of the law and used his body to carry it. Although the true immortals of the myriad races didn't understand this method very well, they still knew a lot. Because Muyang was not the first person to become an immortal in this way. Long before, the current Eastern war god, Shao Qingfeng, had used this method to prove his Tao. Now Muyang had also used this method to prove his Tao. Many true immortals had inexplicable expressions on their faces as they firmly remembered everything about Muyang. Will becoming an immortal like this be even more powerful? Zhu Chen's eyes flickered. Not many people really knew about the physical establishing sage system. Right now, the powerhouses of the myriad races who had become immortals all took the traditional path of Tao proving, which was a certain extent different from the physical establishing sage. Now that he saw Muyang's Tao proving, Zhu Chen also had some thoughts in his heart. After all, he was already a powerhouse at the limit of the heavens and was only one step away from becoming an immortal. Therefore, Zhu Chen was also very cautious about his future path of immortal ascension. If this method of Tao proving was stronger than the traditional method of Tao proving, then there was no need for him to take the traditional system. However, such a brand new system of Tao proving was not something that anyone could do. Including Muyang, there were only 2 people who had proven their Tao like this. He wasn't completely confident. Zhu Chen didn't dare to act on his own. On the other side, the law monument had already been shattered. The moment the law monument shattered, the long river of laws also collapsed. Muyang immediately followed the method of physical establishing sage and grabbed a section of the long river of laws and directly fused it into his body. Just as the rules fused into his body, the lightning tribulation had already successfully condensed. Just as the lightning hadn't completely descended, Muyang directly left the range of the heavenly court. In the next second, boom. Chapter 777. Shocking thunderbolts came crashing down, shaking heaven and earth. The immortal ascension tribulation. Ever since Shao Qingfeng became an immortal, the races of the four continents finally saw the immortal ascension tribulation again. That terrifying aura. Even the immortal ascension experts couldn't help but change their expressions. What a powerful lightning tribulation. Zhu Chen's expression was very serious. The last time Xiao Qingfeng went through the tribulation, he wasn't strong enough and couldn't accurately experience the terror of the immortal ascension tribulation. Now, Mu Yang was going through the tribulation. Only then could Zhu Chen clearly feel how terrifying the power of the lightning tribulation was. Even with his current strength, he had the illusion that he would be destroyed at any time in front of the lightning tribulation. The tribulation has begun. In the heavenly court, Qin Shujian put his hands behind his back and looked at Mu Yang, who was going through the tribulation directly in the atmosphere. His expression didn't change much. Mu Yang had already started cultivating the purple heaven divine lightning scripture when he imparted it to him. More than a year, Mu Yang had attracted the lightning tribulation many times to temper his body. Since he dared to go through the tribulation to become an immortal, he must have considerable confidence to do so. Otherwise, Mu Yang wouldn't go through the tribulation easily. As long as there are no accidents, the probability of success is very high. Qin Shujian understood when he saw that the lightning tribulation didn't shake the branches and leaves of the osmanthus tree. Based on the current situation, unless Mu Yang deliberately sought death, there wouldn't be any difficulty in going through the immortal ascension tribulation. 7 days. The lightning tribulation continued to strike. The duration of the immortal ascension tribulation varied. There was no fixed duration. 7 days had passed. The lightning tribulation between heaven and earth had also reached its final juncture. When the last bolt of lightning struck, the tribulation clouds dissipated with a bang. At the same time, golden flowers scattered in the sky and golden lotuses bloomed on the ground. The phenomenon of immortal ascension had appeared in the four continents once again. The Eldar Emperor has appeared. In the small world of the Jade Waves sect on Heavenly Pattern Island, the branches and leaves of a giant tree swayed. A human face appeared on its thick trunk. In that instant just now, Ancestor Tong Tian had sensed the throbbing in the dark. As an Eldar expert of the ancient times, he knew very well what this throbbing represented. That was the birth of an emperor in Eldar. Ever since the fall of the ancient Ling Huang, Eldar's strength had gradually weakened until 200,000 years ago, when the last of Eldar's royal aura had disappeared. At this moment, Eldar's emperor aura appeared once more. For a moment, Patriarch Heavenspan found it hard to restrain himself. Now that the emperor has appeared, I, Eldar, will definitely rise. Unfortunately, I can't leave Heavenly Rune Island right now. Otherwise, I would be able to help the Eldar even more. Patriarch Heavenspan sighed with regret. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be imprisoned in Heavenly Rune Island forever and would never have the chance to leave. The only thing he could do for Eldar was to guard his current territory and leave behind the last legacy for Eldar. However, old Ancestor Skirich didn't hope that one day, the Eldar of Heavenly Rune Island would become the final foundation of the Eldar. Today, Eldar Emperor Mu Yang has transcended the tribulation and become an immortal. I confer him the title of Guardian General. Qin Shujian stretched out his hand, and the investiture of the gods suddenly appeared. The moment Mu Yang bowed, his name appeared on the list.
Then,
a mysterious force descended, causing Mu Yang's aura to become stronger. The moment he transcended the tribulation and became an immortal, the four great continents, all the silent Eldar woke up at the same time. Then they climbed the mountains and crossed the mountains, heading towards the fallen immortal region. Mu Yang existed in the Heavenly Court. The Heavenly Court existed in the Astral Wind Layer. Not everyone could enter the Heaven and Earth Astral Wind Layer. Therefore, the Eldar of the four great continents could only go to the fallen immortal region, which was closest to the Heavenly Court. Strictly speaking, the Heavenly Court existed above the fallen immortal region. At this moment, Mu Yang successfully transcended the tribulation. He withdrew his original body and transformed into a young man, landing in front of Qin Shujian. Your subject greets the Emperor of Heaven. This time, he didn't address him as a disciple. Becoming a deity of the heavenly court meant becoming an official of the heavenly court. He had a relationship with Qin Shujian, the Emperor of Heaven, as a subject. Qin Shujian nodded with a faint smile on his face. The Eldar system of becoming a sage through the physical body is indeed good. Becoming a true immortal is only the starting point. In the future, you still need to cultivate diligently. Don't slack off. Your subject understands. Mu Yang bowed his head and replied. Qin Shujian said, "You've become an immortal." The Eldar of the 4 great continents are now heading towards the fallen immortal region. The Eldar has disappeared for hundreds of thousands of years. It's time for him to reappear. As the Emperor of the Eldar, you should go and command all the Eldar. In the future, the Eldar will be of great use in dealing with the demon abyss. The Eldar's spiritual energy contained the vitality of heaven and earth. It was the opposite of the demon abyss's demonic energy. If the Eldar had enough experts, by then, they would have a lot of advantages in dealing with the demon abyss. Hearing this, Mu Yang bowed and accepted the order. In the next second, he left the heavenly court and headed towards the fallen immortal region. A huge shadow of an osmanthus tree stretched across the sky above the fallen immortal region, covering the vast fallen immortal region. Abundant vitality swept across the world. The Eldar has been gone for hundreds of thousands of years. Today, I have created an Eldar. In the vast 1,000 domains, all the plants and trees that have given birth to spiritual intelligence will become Eldar. The loud voice spread out in all directions. In the fallen immortal region, under the cover of vitality, the plants and trees were nourished. In just a moment, some of the plants and trees had given birth to spiritual intelligence and became Eldar. At the same time, all the Eldar who were heading towards the fallen immortal region were energized when they heard the news. In the fallen immortal region, Mu Yang revealed his true form. The osmanthus tree was in full bloom. All the osmanthus flowers drifted in the wind and scattered in all directions.
Then,
a tree branch bombarded the air and shattered the void.
Boom.
The void shattered, revealing a pitch-black gap. Mu Yang did not stop. The branches and leaves whipped wildly, like hands and feet. The void within 1,000,000 miles shattered like a mirror. Looking at the shattered void above their heads, the cultivators of the fallen immortal region were so frightened that they did not dare to move. They were afraid that the power would leak down and kill them.
Boom. Boom.
The void within 1,000,000 miles shattered and became chaotic. Seeing this, Mu Yang immediately controlled the shattered void with his celestial core power and forcibly imprisoned it. In the eyes of outsiders, the void fragments froze.
Then,
countless branches and leaves formed a huge hand and grabbed at the shattered void. The void, which was supposed to have no physical body, was forcibly pulled out. A terrifying darkness appeared in the void. Vast celestial core power surged. Mu Yang's branches and leaves trembled and kept wrapping around the void that was pulled out. Half a day later, the void appeared out of thin air, and then disappeared out of thin air. In the end, Mu Yang's branches and leaves danced wildly as if they were holding up a vast world. Once again, they slammed toward the void that was healing. Rumbled. The void buzzed. The small world that belonged to the Eldar was officially opened. Chapter 778. Rebuilding the Eldar. This was to be expected. When they saw Mu Yang become an immortal, many true immortals had some guesses.
So,
now that the Eldar was reunited, they were not too surprised. At this moment, in the Sea of Death, there were waves raging, as if there were some powerful existences fighting. All of a sudden, tens of thousands of feet of waves erupted. A huge body broke through the waves and fell into the sea. At this moment, flames that were not afraid of seawater rose and instantly engulfed the huge body. Roar, an unwilling roar sounded, but it could not change anything. In the end, the body gradually disappeared, leaving only a fire lotus. Zhang Ergu stepped into the air, grabbed the fire lotus in his hand, and began to absorb the energy contained in the fire lotus. After completely absorbing the fire lotus, a star acupoint trembled and opened. I'm about to break through. Looking at the densely open star acupoints in his body, Zhang Ergu's face finally had a look of relief. After entering the Sea of Death for a few years, he could not remember how many beasts had died in his hands. Regardless of the strength of the beasts, Zhang Ergu used the red lotus of purgation to refine them and convert them into pure energy for his breakthrough. Until now, he had already opened more than 38,000 star acupoints, completely surpassing the peak of the 6th level of the Celestial Being Realm, and was moving towards the 7th level of the Celestial Being Realm. In terms of talent, Zhang Ergu was not very good. To be able to upgrade the Gudyuan ancestral canon to such a level in a short period of time, it was all thanks to the help of the beasts in the sea. Without the help of ferocious beasts, he would not be able to reach this stage even in a few decades, let alone a few years. Because in the future cultivation of the Gudyuan ancestral canon, every star acupoint opened required a huge amount of energy. In the first 10 days to half a month, an acupoint could be opened. Perhaps in the later stage, it might take a few years to barely open an acupoint. This was the difference. The Cosmos Bao clicked his tongue in wonder. The Emperor of Heaven's cultivation method is really powerful. With the amount of energy you've absorbed over the years, if you were an ordinary cultivator, even a powerhouse at the peak of the Celestial Being Realm would probably explode. However, you've only just stepped out of the realm of Celestial Being Level 6. If one were to really open 129,600-year-old star acupoints, then the power would be world-shocking. He followed Zhang Ergu. The Cosmos Bao knew a lot about the Gui Yuan ancestral canon. I'm afraid that I'll have to refine all the ferocious beasts in the entire Dead Sea region to achieve that. Zhang Ergu shook his head and lamented helplessly. The fierce beast that he had just killed was in existence at the 8th level of the Deva realm. However, an 8th level Deva fierce beast could only barely open up one acupoint. The difficulty of opening the acupoints in the later stage was far beyond Zhang Ergu's imagination. He couldn't believe it. How in the world did Qin Shujian manage to open all 129,600 star acupoints? With the difficulty of opening the star acupoints, Zhang Ergu suspected that even if he refined a perfected immortal, he might not be able to open them successfully. However, although he was curious, he didn't intend to explore. Instead, his gaze fell on the longbow beside him. Elder Qian, when can you break through to a 6-seal Dao artifact? It's not that easy to upgrade a Dao artifact. The Bao of Heaven and Earth replied indifferently. After a pause, he continued, under normal circumstances, a Dao artifact needs to absorb a huge amount of spirit energy to upgrade. It will take at least 1,000 years to go from the 5-seal to the 6-seal. However, if there's an abundant amount of energy to nourish it, there's a chance for it to advance quickly. Energy nourishment? Zhang Ergu was puzzled. He had just asked casually. He didn't expect the Cosmos Bao to really have something to say. The Cosmos Bao said, energy nourishment is easy to understand. As long as there's enough energy for me to absorb, I can shorten the time needed to advance. The ferocious beasts in the sea rely on absorbing the spirit energy of heaven and earth to survive. They don't cultivate rules, so their flesh and blood are filled with rich energy. If you can kill some powerful ferocious beasts and nourish them with blood, I can speed up my advancement. But looking at you now, I guess you're eating it all by yourself. Zhang Ergu was heartless. The Cosmos Bao had a deep understanding. It didn't even have enough energy to absorb. How could it leave any extra for him? Of course. The Cosmos Bao also had some thoughts in its heart. It hoped that Buttface would find his conscience and give it some energy. There'll be a chance in the future. The corner of Zhang Ergu's mouth twitched. He casually carried the Cosmos Bao on his back. Since he wanted to snatch food from him, he would just pretend that he didn't ask.
To this.
The Cosmos Bao was also speechless. You should at least pretend. You're so direct. It hurts me. When I have the strength to hunt perfected immortals in the future, I won't forget about you. Elder Qian, don't worry. Zhang Erge heard this and thought for a moment, then gave a decent consolation. The Cosmos Bao was speechless. God knows how many years it would take for him to break through to perfected immortal. After complaining in its heart, the Cosmos Bao composed itself and said in a deep voice, speaking of which, ferocious beasts in the 8th stage of the heavenly human stage are not that useful to you. And now, although you haven't killed all the ferocious beasts in the heavenly human stage, you've killed many of them. Even if you kill all the ferocious beasts in the heavenly human stage, the chances of you breaking through to perfected immortal are very slim. Elder Qian, what do you mean? Why don't you go to the inner region of the sea and take a look? The Cosmos Bao reminded. Hearing this, Zhang Erge fell into deep thought. The inner region of the sea. For the people of the eastern continent, it was a dangerous place. Not to mention the inner region, even the outer region was extremely dangerous, without enough strength. The ferocious beasts were one reason. The natural disaster was another. It was only because Zhang Erge was strong enough and had the Cosmos Bao to protect him that he could resist the power of the natural disaster. However, if he entered the inner region, it would be completely different. Because there were ferocious beasts in the perfected immortal stage in the inner region. With Zhang Erge's current strength, which was not even at the 7th stage of the heaven-human stage, he could fight against a ruler at the 10th stage of the heaven-human stage. However, there was still a certain gap between him and a perfected immortal. The Cosmos Bao said, although there are perfected immortal ferocious beasts in the inner region, I don't think there will be too many of them. The real danger in the sea is in the depths, not the inner region. There are even more powerful ferocious beasts there, and even mighty figures are everywhere. If you enter the inner region, your strength will increase even faster. Moreover, with your current strength, if you really encounter a perfected immortal ferocious beast, it shouldn't be a problem for you to escape. The inner region, Zhang Erge's expression changed. He had to admit that he was indeed tempted. The powerful ferocious beasts in the outer region were almost killed. In comparison, only the inner region could satisfy his needs. Chapter 779. After making a decision, Zhang Erge immediately flew into the air and headed towards the inner area of the sea. There were natural disasters along the way, but to him, those natural disasters didn't pose any threat. The reason was very simple. Those natural disasters that appeared were all the power imprints that Zhang Erge had left on the periphery of the sea in the past few years. He hid himself. Although it wasn't easy, it wasn't too difficult either. As for the beasts, there was nothing to stop them. In the past few years, Zhang Erge had killed countless beasts, and the murderous aura accumulated on his body had reached a terrifying level. Even though the beasts didn't have intelligence and could only act on instinct, when they sensed the terrifying murderous aura, they also consciously retreated. To a certain extent, the murderous aura accumulated from killing too many beasts was equivalent to a natural protective layer on the periphery of the sea. After all, facing an executioner who had killed countless of their clansmen, even the beasts would feel fear. In the heavenly court, the court meeting was held as usual. Do you have anything to report? On the throne, Qin Shujian sat there as steady as Mount Tai, looking down at the gods below. Every word and action was in accordance with heaven and earth, causing the entire heavenly palace to be enveloped by a majestic aura. As soon as he finished speaking, an immortal god stepped forward and cupped his hands. Emperor of Heaven, not long ago, a mutant came to submit a mission and said that he suspected to have found the location of the Ma Xia clan. We have also sent cultivators to investigate, but that void is heavily guarded. Many people have died, but they couldn't get close at all. Qin Shujian's expression changed. Then, he looked at the immortal god below and asked faintly, "Did you send a true immortal to investigate?" "Not yet." The immortal god shook his head and then explained, "There are demon king-level existences guarding there, and I can't be sure if there are demon emperors guarding there. In addition, The true immortals of the 10,000 clans are precious. If one or two of them die because of this, it won't be worth it. It was too risky to send a true immortal just to confirm whether that place was the territory of the Masha clan or not. For the current heavenly court, any true immortal was an extremely precious existence. Unless a great war really broke out, the death of any true immortal was a loss that had to be avoided as much as possible. Where is it? Emperor of Heaven, please take a look. The immortal handed over a jade talisman. With a wave of his hand, Qin Shujian shattered the jade talisman and read the information contained within. The information contained in the jade talisman was insignificant to him. In the blink of an eye, Qin Shujian completely absorbed and digested the information in the jade talisman. As the demon emperor of the Mose Halo clan, the place where Yelvis is overseeing should be where the Mose Halo clan is located. There's indeed no need to send a true immortal to investigate. I have already memorized the coordinates of this place. Is there any news from the remaining Baido and Yizo clans? Qin Shujian turned his gaze back to the deities. Seeing this, the gods were all speechless. It was already not easy to get the coordinates of a clan. After all, the outer realm was so vast that it was much larger than the great wide world. In addition, it had only been 2 to 3 years since the Heavenly Court opened up the extraterritorial battlefield. There was no way for them to explore the extraterritorial void completely. Obtain the coordinates of all the clans. That was even more impossible. The demon emperor cupped his hands and said, reporting to the Emperor of Heaven, although we don't have the coordinates of the other 2 clans, we have locked onto a few locations. There are experts guarding those places, and many variant cultivators have fallen there. If nothing unexpected happens, there must be 2 clans in those places. However, it will still take some time to completely verify it. Do your best to find the location of the other 2 clans. At the same time, inform the extraterritorial battlefield to not let the void evil demons take advantage of the opportunity to sneak in. Let the myriad clans prepare for war and officially exterminate the void evil demon clan within 5 years. Qin Shujian waved his hand and shouted in a powerful voice. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. Exterminating the void evil demon clan within 5 years was undoubtedly a very difficult task. Judging from the previous few exchanges, Yi Zichen could tell. The strength of the void evil demon clan was not weaker than the Heavenly Court. If they really went to war, it was very likely that both sides would suffer. After a short silence, an immortal god could not help but say, reporting to the Emperor of Heaven, exterminating the void evil demon clan within 5 years is probably too rash. Right now, the power of the stars is rich, and stalling for time is beneficial to us. Why don't we wait for a while more? We will have more confidence. That's right. The Moon Empress nodded slightly and said coldly, the 3 clans have many experts. If we really go to war, the immortals of the Heavenly Court are naturally not afraid, but I'm afraid that many perfected immortals of the myriad clans will die. If too many perfected immortals die, it will be disadvantageous for us to fight against the demon abyss in the future. The other immortals did not say anything, but their meaning was similar. Now that the Heavenly Court had a certain advantage, as long as they delayed for enough time, they could expand this advantage. The demon abyss was not a secret. There were also immortals who accidentally entered the demon abyss when exploring the outer realm, but they also retreated in time. As for the distance between the demon abyss and the major Kiliacosm, they had a clear estimate of time. There's no need to talk too much about dealing with the void evil demons. I know what to do. Within 5 years, I will attack the 3 clans. There's not much time left for the myriad clans. In addition, nurture the heavenly soldiers as much as possible. I hope to see the heavenly soldiers play a sufficient role when we fight against the 3 clans. Qin Shujian's expression was solemn, and his tone was unquestionable. Within 5 years, the 3 clans had to be settled. At that time, the Heavenly Court would be able to dominate the outer realm.
The rest.
Only then would they consolidate their strength and fight the demon abyss. Seeing Qin Shujian's firm attitude, The other immortals wanted to refute, but in the end, they did not say anything. How are the stars and star cores that I asked you to find now? Qin Shujian changed the topic and said calmly. He did not intend to talk about the three clans anymore. Instead, he changed the topic to the stars and star cores. Hearing this, Emperor Zhao was the first to step forward. I obtained 3 stars and 5 star cores for my trip to the outer realm. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves, and several stone balls floated up into the air and flew towards Qin Shujian. Qin Shujian reached out and grabbed all the stone balls in the air. If one looked carefully, they would discover every stone ball had a powerful sealing power on it, and a vast amount of energy was faintly discernible within the stone balls.
Then,
Qin Shujian stored all the stone balls into the investiture of the gods. The stone balls entered. The god roll trembled slightly. The pressure that was already there intensified by a lot.
below.
After Emperor Zhao took out the stars and star cores, the other gods also took out the stars and star cores and handed them to Qin Shujian. Soon, the god roll reached its limit. Chapter 780. After putting away all the stars and star cores, Qin Shujian said, "The matter of collecting the stars and star cores is urgent. You can't slack off. Court dismissed. We'll take our leave." The gods bowed and retreated. Just as they left, Qin Shujian got up from his throne and left the range of the heavenly palace. Above the heavenly court, the sun was shining. The Sanhua sword was still absorbing the power of the stars to nourish itself. Zhou Tian's star map was emitting a powerful pressure. Emperor of Heaven. It was a cold greeting without much emotion. Towards Qin Shujian's arrival, Sanhua was already used to it. Anyway, he would come every once in a while. He also understood that Qin Shujian had a completely free attitude towards him. In view of this, Sanhua was more than happy to stay here. However, he also believed that Qin Shujian wouldn't confer him a title for no reason. He definitely had a purpose. He didn't do anything at the moment because it wasn't the right time yet. When the time came, he might understand the other party's purpose. At this moment, Qin Shujian stood above Zhou Tian's star map. The investiture of the gods was opened, and all the sealed stars were released. The moment the stone ball appeared, he waved his hand and used his vital essence to break all the seals on it. The seals were broken. A huge star suddenly appeared in the void, and a terrifying pressure crushed the surrounding space into dust. Before the stars fell, Qin Shujian used his vital essence again and forcibly suppressed all the stars. It was different from the way Emperor Zhao and the others completely sealed the stars. To absorb the power of the stars, one couldn't completely seal the stars. Otherwise, even Zhou Tian's star map couldn't absorb any power from the completely sealed stars.
So,
Qin Shujian's current method was simply to reduce the size of the stars. After the inner heaven and earth law seeds increased, his strength had become much stronger. Even if there were hundreds of stars, he could still suppress them all at once. Under the control of Qin Shujian, all the suppressed stars flew toward Zhou Tian's star map. When it entered the node of Zhou Tian's star map, a terrifying surge of energy suddenly erupted. Rumble. A buzzing sound reverberated throughout the heavenly court. The power that spread out annihilated all the astral winds of heaven and earth that it touched. Immediately after, then, a dense and substantial starlight came crashing down from Zhou Tian's star chart like a pillar of light. Instantly, the heavenly courts seemed to be bathed in the Milky Way. At that moment, the immortals and gods of the heavenly court all opened their eyes. When they looked at the scene of the galaxy, their eyes were filled with unerasable shock. Even Chu Kuangtu and Niu Dali looked extremely solemn at this moment. Such stellar energy is comparable to the heavenly court of the First Era. Niu Dali had a strange expression on his face. When he saw the scene that resembled a galaxy, the ancient memories were also unsealed from the dust. The First Era. It was the most powerful era, because that was the beginning of the universe. All the powerful existences reigned supreme in the First Era. Since the Heavenly Court existed in that epoch, it was easy to imagine how powerful the Heavenly Court was. At the peak of their power, even existences at the Dao fruit level had to bow in front of the Heavenly Courts. Although the current stellar energy can't be compared to the Heavenly Courts of the Emperor Juntai era, it's not weaker than the Heavenly Courts of the Great Heaven era. Although it's extreme to drain the pond to fish, the benefits are obvious. With the irrigation of such stellar energy, the experts of the myriad races will definitely spring up like bamboo shoots after the rain. I can also take this opportunity to try to break through to the 7th level immortal realm. Niodali thought to himself. There were 2 heavenly courts in the First Era. The first one was established by Emperor Juntai, which was also the most powerful heavenly court in the First Era. If it didn't involve many factors at the Dao fruit level, the most powerful heavenly court wouldn't have collapsed. After the collapse of the first heavenly court, only then did the second heavenly court exist, which was also the heavenly courts of the Great Heaven era. Although the second heavenly court was still powerful, there was still a gap between it and the first heavenly court. However, this gap was relative. Seriously speaking, the heavenly courts of the Great Heaven era could be said to be the strongest compared to the heavenly courts of the other eras. This was an epoch without even a single Dao fruit. A heavenly court that could be comparable to the Great Heaven era in a certain aspect was indeed enough to make people clap their hands and praise. Moreover, in Niodali's opinion, the current stellar energy density was still not the peak of this heavenly court. When all 365 heavenly cycle star diagrams were placed into the stars, that would be the true peak. At that time, even the heavenly courts of the Emperor Juntai era were only SOSO. After all, no matter which era it was still very rare to be able to extract stellar energy for one's own use without any restraint like the current era. Coincidentally, this era was the last chance. Coincidentally, the Emperor of Heaven of this era was Qin Shujian. Therefore, that was why there was such a rare opportunity. Niodali retracted his gaze from the galaxy and smiled. I really want to see how effective the stellar energy of the heavenly courts of the Emperor Juntai era is. In the First Era, he only went to the heavenly courts and did not have the chance to cultivate there. He could only look at the terrifyingly rich stellar energy. Because, speaking of which, the Grand Pure Holy Man did not have a good relationship with the strongest heavenly courts. Niodali was the Grand Pure Holy Man's mount and did not have the chance to cultivate in the heavenly courts. It was also a pity for him. A pity that he did not cultivate in the heavenly courts of that era. As time passed, Niodali also forgot about this matter. Now that he saw the galaxy, he recalled this matter again. Niodali had a premonition. Perhaps the small regret of the First Era could be made up for in this era. His chaotic thoughts gradually calmed down. Niodali calmed himself down again and absorbed stellar energy to cultivate. There was a green bowl lying on his side in the hall. As he breathed, powerful Taoist rhythms circulated. And as he breathed, there was also the flow of the nomological river, which set off Niodali. If one looked at it seriously, one could see that the cracked nomological laws were being repaired bit by bit. Every crack that was being repaired and extended could make Niodali's aura become denser.
Splash.
From time to time, waves would rise from the river, and faint sounds could be heard. The entire hall also underwent some slight changes under the flow of the nomological river. Throughout the entire process, there wasn't much of a disturbance. Everything was imperceptibly changing in ways that ordinary people didn't know about. Chapter 781. While Niodali was concentrating on cultivating, Chu Kuangtu was also on the verge of a breakthrough. He had awakened earlier than the other party. In terms of foundation, Niodali was actually slightly inferior when they were at their peak states. Therefore, when it came to the recovery of strength, Chu Kuangtu was also slightly better. While Niodali was recovering his strength and looking for an opportunity to break through to the 7th level of the immortal realm, He was already breaking through to the 7th level of the immortal realm. In the hall, the long river of laws shook. The broken long river of laws was repairing bit by bit. Chu Kuangtu sat cross-legged in the middle, frantically absorbing the power of the stars for his own use. Whether it was the nomological Tao or the physical sanctification. There were some differences between the two systems when they became immortals, but the path they took was similar. The nomological Tao experts. From the 1st level of the immortal realm to the 9th level of the immortal realm, they would gradually control their own rules. When they broke through to the 9th level of the immortal realm, they would completely control the rules. Only after completely controlling the rules could they rely on their own strength to expand and strengthen the rules. In other words, breaking through to the perfected immortal realm was a stage. From the 1st level of the immortal realm to the 9th level of the immortal realm was another stage. As for the cultivators of the physical sanctification system, the first few realms were all repairing and perfecting the rules. When the rules were completely repaired, the realm would naturally break through to the 9th level of the immortal realm. When that time came, only then would they strengthen their own rules and reach the point where they could surpass the rules of heaven and earth. At this moment, Chu Kuangtu was repairing his own rules. In addition to his own comprehension, the repair of the rules also required a vast amount of energy. With his Tao fruit realm, he naturally did not lack comprehension of the rules. What he truly lacked was just the energy to repair the rules. Therefore, the biggest beneficiaries of the rich star power of the heavenly court were not the immortals of the heavenly court, nor were they the cultivators of the myriad races of the 4 major continents. Instead, it was the old antiques who had been reborn in the previous epochs. As for the purpose of Qin Shu Jian absorbing the stars, part of the reason was to improve the foundation of the myriad races. But the biggest reason was to let Chu Kuangtu and the others recover their strength. Now, only these 2 people had the chance to break through to the 3rd level of the perfected immortal realm in a short period of time. As strong as Emperor Zhao, Xiao Qingfeng and the others. Breaking through to the upper 3 true immortals was not something that could be done in a short time. This span of time. Not only was there a difference in talent, but there was also a problem of foundation. In Qin Shujian's opinion, it would take at least a few decades for the immortals and gods of the heavenly court to produce an expert of the upper 3 true immortal realms. There was also the possibility that someone was faster. However, no matter how fast he was, there was still a limit. Is Chu Kuangtu about to make a breakthrough? Before Qin Shu Jian left Zhou Tian's star map, he cast his gaze toward a certain palace in the heavenly court. A powerful aura was faintly discernible there. As the Emperor of Heaven, nothing in the heavenly court could escape his eyes and ears. Come to think of it, it's indeed time for Chu Kuangtu to make a breakthrough. Qin Shu Jian smiled. If Chu Kuangtu made a breakthrough, then the foundation of the heavenly court would become even stronger. When the time came to wage war with the 3 great clans, they would almost certainly win. After all, the strength of the demon emperors of the 3 clans had been weakened a little, while Qin Shujian's own strength was steadily increasing. The gap between the 2 had been widened a little. If Chu Kuangtu made a breakthrough now, this gap would once again be widened to an extent that could not be made up for. And there was no possibility that Chu Kuangtu would fail to make a breakthrough. Qin Shu Jian did not have any doubts. As a reincarnated Tao fruit, if he could fail to break through to the 7th true immortal realm, he might as well just kill himself, lest he embarrass them. In the heavenly court, most people did not notice Chu Kuangtu's breakthrough. But in the entire heavenly court, apart from Qin Shu Jian, there were very few people who could sense this. He's about to make a breakthrough. San Hua's cold voice sounded, and there was an inexplicable emotion in his tone. He was the sword master's divine weapon. In the past era, he had fought with Chu Kuangtu, the blade master, many times. Now, things had changed. The sword master had fallen, and he had also submitted to the heavenly court, while the sword master was trying to break through to the 7th true immortal realm. For a moment, San Hua had mixed feelings in his heart. After taking a brief look at the sword, Qin Shu Jian turned and left. Chu Kuangtu's breakthrough was good news, proving that the heavenly court would have one more upper-level true immortal. Moreover, the other party was the reincarnation of a Dao fruit. Once he broke through to the third true immortal realm, he would not be comparable to a simple seventh true immortal. When the time came, not to say that he was comparable to a ninth true immortal, but dealing with an eighth true immortal would not be a problem. Even if he faced a ninth true immortal demon emperor, he would have the confidence to contend with him. Moreover, if Chu Kuangtu made a breakthrough, even if Niodali's foundation was weaker, the next few years would be enough for him to make a breakthrough. As a result, the heavenly court officially had 3 upper-level true immortals. When it was time to start a war with the 3 clans, it would be enough to press Hito and the other demon emperors to the ground. It was precisely because of this. That was why Qin Shujian had the confidence to wipe out the 3 clans within 5 years. The other immortals and gods thought that the heavenly court needed to rely on the strength of the immortals and gods of the heavenly court to wage a war against the 3 clans. In fact, that was not the case. Chu Kuangtu, Niodali, and Qin Shujian himself were the main reasons to deal with the 3 clans. As long as those demon emperors were destroyed, there was no possibility of resisting with the remaining void demons. The further back they went, the more important the top combat power was. Although there were enough ordinary true immortals, as long as there were enough of them, they could also kill the true immortals of the upper 3 levels. But seriously speaking, if they wanted to kill an upper 3 true immortal, they would need to pay at least 100 times the number of true immortals. Otherwise, there was absolutely no possibility of suppressing an upper 3 true immortal. In other words, as long as there was one more upper 3 true immortal, it would be more useful than 100 more true immortals. Of course, there were definitely more than 100 true immortals at the Demon King level in the 3 clans. Qin Shujian was confident in dealing with a few demon emperors, but it did not mean that he was confident in dealing with all the true immortals of the 3 clans while dealing with the demon emperors. At this moment, the role of the heavenly court and the myriad races was played. Soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals. As long as he dealt with the demon emperor and cooperated with the strength of the heavenly court, it would not be a problem to destroy the remaining void demons. Back in the inner hall of the heavenly palace, Qin Shujian sank his consciousness into the investiture of the gods. He saw that in the vast space inside the god roll, there were a large number of star cores floating. His spiritual will swept across. All of the star cores were covered by it. In an instant, Qin Shujian's spiritual will withdrew from the god roll. I've already collected 157 star cores. I'm still a little more than 200 away from the minimum requirement of 365 star cores to refine Zhou Tian's star map. In another 2 years, I'll almost be able to collect all of them. As long as he collected all the star cores, he could start refining the real Zhou Tian star map. At that time, the heavenly court would have one more powerful means. Chapter 782. Star Energy Poured In. The cultivators of the 4 major continents once again entered a period of explosive growth. 9-headed mystic realm. How much longer until I break through to true immortals? The Dog Emperor sat on the throne. There was another seat below him, and the one sitting there was Zhu Chen. As a peak diviner expert, Zhu Chen was the strongest expert in the 9-headed dog clan after the Dog Emperor. As such, although he did not have the right to sit on the same level as the Dog Emperor, he still had a place in the palace. As for the other elders, they were all subconsciously inferior to him. Zhu Chen said, "Now that the star energy has become much denser, I should be able to attempt a breakthrough within a month. If you can, then so be it." The Dog Emperor nodded. If Zhu Chen could become an immortal, the 9-headed dog clan would have another true immortal expert. This way, the clan's foundation would also improve greatly, which was a great thing. When the star energy became denser, many powerful races had given birth to more than one true immortal. Strictly speaking, the 9-headed dog clan was a large clan. But until now, they only had the Dog Emperor as a true immortal. If they delayed any longer, they would be criticized. Fortunately, the Dog Emperor was one of the 5 emperors. In terms of strength and prestige, other true immortals could not compare to him. And so, that was why the other clans did not dare to cause trouble. On the side, Zhu Chun hesitated. He had something to say, but did not know how to say it. His emotional fluctuations could not be hidden from the Dog Emperor's senses. The Dog Emperor looked at him and said calmly, "If you have something to say, then say it boldly. Hesitation is not in your character." Not long ago, Emperor Eldar underwent the tribulation to become an immortal. You should know that I discovered that the Eastern War God and that Ling Huang's method of breaking through to true immortal was different from the usual system. I was thinking, if I could break through to true immortal using that method, would I become even stronger? Zhu Chun hesitated, but after he finished speaking, he no longer hesitated. Looking at the Dog Emperor, he paused for a moment before continuing. If that method of becoming an immortal would make me even stronger, I would like to give it a try. But the lightning tribulation's power does not seem to be easy to pass. That's why I'm not too sure either, so I'm here to ask for your advice. A new system. Perhaps he would become even stronger after becoming an immortal. If there was a chance, Zhu Chen also wanted to give it a try. However, when Mu Yang underwent his tribulation to become an immortal, the might of the tribulation made him hesitate. If he wasn't mistaken, when that might descended, even a true immortal might die, let alone a celestial. Could it be that the unknown Ling Huang was also an expert who was strong enough to kill immortals? Regarding this, Zhu Chen also had doubts in his heart. Not just anyone could kill an immortal with a celestial. Even though the myriad races were at their peak, there were very few experts who were qualified to kill immortals. It was publicly acknowledged that he could slay immortals. Only the Emperor of Heaven and the Eastern God of War, Shao Qingfeng. Other than that, there was no third existence that could slay immortals. Hearing this, the Dog Emperor's expression was serious. Shao Qingfeng and Mu Yang's method of becoming immortal should be a completely new system. Ben Huang doesn't know much about this. But the Emperor of Heaven should know. If you are sure to do this, Ben Huang can ask the Emperor of Heaven on your behalf. But before you get the results, don't try rashly. The power of the Immortal Ascension Lightning Tribulation, even a first-level immortal would be at risk of dying. If you die during the tribulation, it won't be so easy for our clan to produce another true immortal in a short period of time. The Dog Emperor was also worried that Zhu Chen would go through the tribulation on impulse. Although the cultivation environment had improved greatly now, and the Nine-Headed Dog Clan had many experts. But the problem was, the Nine-Headed Dog Clan's foundation was still a little weak. Even with the power of the stars, the experts born now stopped at the Almighty Realm. It was not so easy to reach the limit of a celestial, or even the true immortal realm. Zhu Chen was really going to fail. In the next few years, the Nine-Headed Dog Clan would not have a second true immortal. In the past, a gap of a few years was nothing at all. But it was different now. Everything had happened in a few short years, and it made the Dog Emperor feel an invisible sense of urgency. A few years seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. But if things went wrong, it was enough to change the entire Nine-Headed Dog Clan. Zhu Chen understood the Dog Emperor's concerns. Don't worry, Emperor. I won't try it unless I'm 100% sure. After all, no matter how strong I am after the tribulation, it's all for nothing if I fail. If there's really no other way, it's better to break through according to the traditional system. How strong the future was, how good the prospects were. The premise of everything. It had to be that he could successfully break through. If it was the tribulation, everything would be illusory. On this point, Zhu Chen understood it very well. Seeing this, the Dog Emperor calmed down. Ben Huang will help you ask. With that, he left the Nine-Headed Secret Realm. He broke through the astral wind layer. When he entered the heavenly court, he saw a scene that seemed to be immersed in the galaxy. The Dog Emperor could not help but be stunned. Since the end of the last court meeting, he had returned to the Nine-Headed Dog Clan's territory. He had not been to the heavenly court in this period of time. Therefore, the change in front of him was a little unexpected.
Soon.
The dog emperor came back to his senses. Then, he stepped on the yellow cloud galaxy and walked toward the heavenly palace. After entering the heavenly palace, he cupped his hands toward the osmanthus tree in front of him and said politely, "This emperor wishes to meet the Emperor of Heaven. Please inform him, Divine General." "So, it's the Emperor of the Eastern Sun. Please wait for a moment. This one will go and inform him." The osmanthus tree swayed, and Mu Yang's incarnation appeared. After cupping his hands toward the dog emperor, he walked toward the inner hall of the heavenly palace. Seeing this, the dog emperor did not say anything. He just stood there and waited. The divine general guarding the heavenly court. In terms of official position, he was definitely inferior to the emperors of the 5 directions. Even the war gods of the 4 extremes were inferior. If one were to really compare, he was at most the same as Zhou Tian's constellation. Logically speaking, he did not need to give him too much face. The problem was that although Mu Yang was the divine general guarding the heavenly palace, he was also Qin Shujian's confidant. As the Emperor of Heaven's confidant, even if he did not have a deity position, the dog emperor did not want to offend him. Therefore, the necessary etiquette was still necessary. Not long after, Mu Yang walked out of the inner hall. He cupped his hands toward the dog emperor and said with a smile, "The Emperor of Heaven is in the inner hall. Emperor of the Eastern Sun can enter by yourself." "Many thanks," the dog emperor said with a smile, then walked into the inner hall. Chapter 783. In the inner hall of the heavenly palace, stars swirled around. The surging power of the stars had already flowed into the heavenly palace. The dog emperor stepped in. When he saw Qin Shujian on the throne, he immediately bowed. "Greetings, Emperor of Heaven. Emperor of the Eastern Sun, you may dispense with the formalities." "Thank you, Emperor of Heaven." "Emperor, why did you suddenly come to my heavenly palace today?" Qin Shujian said lightly. He was also curious about the dog emperor's intentions. Under normal circumstances, the immortals of the heavenly court would not come here unless it was a court meeting. Qin Shujian didn't believe that the dog emperor didn't have anything important to say when he suddenly came over. In a short moment, many thoughts flashed through Qin Shujian's mind, but he suppressed these thoughts in the end.
Below.
The dog emperor cupped his hands and said, "I'm here to ask the Emperor of Heaven about something."
Speak.
"May I ask if the Eastern God of War and the Guardian Divine General will have a thunder tribulation when they become immortals? Is there any essential difference from the traditional immortal ascension?" The dog emperor pondered for a moment and asked the question in his heart. In fact, in the heavenly court, Xiao Qingfeng and Mu Yang were not the only ones who had a thunder tribulation when they became immortals. In his eyes, there were also the mysterious Chu Quangtu and Niu Dali. But for the latter, the dog emperor did not know much, so he did not ask casually. Besides, the existence of the latter was only known to the immortals of the heavenly court. Those who were not immortals of the heavenly court were not qualified to meet those 2 mysterious existences. It was not as eye-catching as Xiao Qingfeng and Mu Yang, who had directly undergone the thunder tribulation in the fallen immortal realm. Hearing the dog emperor's words, Qin Shujian finally understood the dog emperor's intentions. There were not many people who knew about the physical sanctification system, so it was normal for the dog emperor to have doubts. Immediately, he waved his hand, and a stream of light burst out and directly entered the dog emperor's mind. The whole process only took a moment. The dog emperor did not even have time to react before unfamiliar memories appeared in his mind. Instinctively, he closed his eyes and digested the unfamiliar memories in his mind. After a while, the dog emperor opened his eyes. His pupils were filled with shock. 3 great systems. Physical sanctification system. Even his firm Tao heart shuddered. Until now, the dog emperor finally understood that on the path of cultivation, there was more than just the traditional path. There were actually 3 paths that could be taken. If that's the case, the the Eastern Pole War God and the Guardian Divine Generals are following the path of physical sanctification. He took a deep breath and instantly thought of Chu Kuang-tu and Niu Dali. Qin Shujian said, "In the fleshly sanctification system, one has to face the immortal ascension tribulation when becoming an immortal. The power of this tribulation is extraordinary. One must have a strong enough physical body to have the hope of successfully transcending the tribulation. Otherwise, they would die." This method of immortal ascension was indeed stronger than the traditional method of immortal ascension, but it was not absolute. As for how to proceed, it's up to you. Hearing this, the Dog Emperor immediately bowed. "Thank you, Emperor of Heaven, for clearing my doubts. If there's nothing else, you may take your leave." "I'll take my leave." The Dog Emperor turned and left. On the Emperor's throne, Qin Shujian silently watched the Dog Emperor leave. His thoughts drifted to another place. The Dog Emperor's sudden visit today made him think of something. As early as Shao Qingfeng's tribulation and the subsequent powerhouses' tribulations, the physical sanctification system could not be hidden. Of course, Qin Shujian did not intend to hide this system. It was just that in the beginning he did not expect to announce the physical sanctification system so soon. This was because in the current era there was a huge gap between the two worlds. The Tao affirmation system was the right path. Whether it was the physical sanctification or the evolution of heaven and earth, they were all unorthodox. Comparing the three, it was easier to become an immortal using the traditional system. As long as no one got in the way, the risk was minimal. As long as one did not deliberately seek death, there was no possibility of failing to become an immortal. However, once the physical sanctification system was leaked, there would definitely be cultivators who wanted to use the system to break through their own limits. If that was the case, there would be a high degree of risk. Because it was different from the traditional system, the lightning tribulation of this era was much more powerful than the lightning tribulation of the Third Era. The lightning tribulation was more powerful, and the success rate was lower. But even the Emperor of the Eastern Sun came to ask about it. The physical sanctification system cannot be hidden. There might be other cultivators at the heavenly human limit who want to imitate the former and break through. Instead of waiting for someone to break through and die, it's better to release the news in advance. Anyway, if we can really cultivate a group of physical sanctification powerhouses, it will be beneficial for the heavenly court in the long run. Qin Shujian fell into deep thought. Thoughts were spinning in his mind. Great power returned to oneself. Naturally, it was a powerful existence. As for the evolution of heaven and earth system, he did not think too much about it. Because, in Qin Shujian's opinion, it was not easy to follow the evolution of heaven and earth system. If he did not use the foundation of his previous life and combined it with his real power to deduce, he would not have been able to deduce the Guiyuan ancestral canon. In other words, unless he had the support of a corresponding cultivation method, it was impossible to evolve heaven and earth. After figuring out the key points, he woke up from his contemplation.
Suddenly,
Qin Shujian grabbed the investiture of the gods on the table and transmitted the corresponding information to the heavenly court's gods through the investiture of the gods. In the palace, Xiong interrupted his cultivation. He could not help but look stunned by the unfamiliar memories that appeared in his mind. But soon, he recovered from his shock. After carefully digesting the memories in his mind, Shi Yang's stunned expression turned into shock. Evolution of heaven and earth, physical sanctification, and Tao affirmation. He now understood that the system that he had originally followed was called Tao affirmation. It was also the weakest of the three major systems. As for the system that Shao Qingfeng had followed, it was ranked second, physical sanctification. Thinking of the Eastern god of war's tyrannical strength, Shi Yang's heart trembled. At first, he did not know why Shao Qingfeng's strength was so much stronger than ordinary true immortals. But now it all made sense. Then, what about the Emperor of Heaven? When the Emperor of Heaven became an immortal, there were no rules and no thunder tribulations. Then he should have followed the evolution of heaven and earth system. And only by following the strongest system can one be qualified to establish the heavenly court and rule over thousands of races. Instantly, Shi Yang's attention fell on Qin Shujian. Without a doubt, the system that he had followed was the strongest evolution of heaven and earth system. After all, many of the phenomena of immortal ascension did not appear on Qin Shujian. After thinking about it, this was the only reasonable explanation. Chapter 784. For a moment, all of Shi Yang's doubts about Qin Shujian were solved at this moment. However, he couldn't figure it out. Why did the other party have to release this news at this moment of all times? If the news of the three great systems spreads, I'm afraid there will be a huge change in the myriad races in the future. Xiong didn't need to guess to understand what kind of shock the three great systems would cause after the news spread. There were so many cultivators in the myriad races, so there would definitely be experts who wanted to give it a try. After all, it was a chance to become stronger. Very few people could turn a blind eye to it. After a long time, Xiong calmed his mind and entered the state of cultivation. No matter what system it was, it didn't have much to do with him. Because the three great systems, only when one was at the celestial being realm would one have the right to choose. Once one broke through to the true immortal realm, there was no turning back. Unless he crippled his own cultivation and started cultivating from scratch. But for Shi Yang, crippling his own cultivation and starting from scratch was equivalent to crippling his own limbs and courting death. Not to mention himself. None of the true immortals would make such a choice. Because once he crippled his own cultivation and started from scratch, no one could guarantee that he would succeed in transcending the tribulation. More importantly, most of the experts who could cultivate to the true immortal realm had experienced thousands of years of bitter cultivation. To rashly cripple one's own cultivation, not to mention whether one could survive such a heavy injury. Just the impact of the reduction of one's lifespan could cause a true immortal to die on the spot. As long as one wasn't someone who took things too hard, no one would do that.
So,
Xiong didn't have any intention of walking down the other systems. Now, he had already reached the peak of the third level of immortal. If he took another step forward, he could officially break through to the fourth level of immortal and join the ranks of the middle three levels of immortal. Even in the ancient times, the middle three levels of immortal were all influential experts. Even now, the number of middle three levels of immortal in the heavenly court could be counted on one hand. The total number of devilish emperors from the three void fiend clans didn't exceed 10.
So,
if he could break through to the fourth level of immortal, then the status of the human race in the heavenly court would rise by a lot. Just as Xiong was calming his mind to cultivate. After the gods of the heavenly court received the news of the three great systems, they immediately spread it out. It didn't spread completely, but only transmitted to the races it belonged to. However, the experts of the same race would definitely have friends from other races. One after another. In less than a month, the news of the three major systems swept through the four major continents. At this point, everyone understood that becoming an immortal was not only possible through the traditional system, but also through a total of three major systems. Physical sanctification system. After Zhu Qin received the news, the doubts in his heart disappeared. However, the first thing that came to his mind was not the sanctification of the physical body, but the evolution of heaven and earth system. This was because according to the news that the heavenly court had spread, this system was the most powerful of the three major systems. However, if there were still traces of physical sanctification, then there was really no news at all about heaven and earth evolution. In Zhu Chen's mind, the Emperor of Heaven should have followed this system. But the problem was, when the other party became an immortal, there was no news at all. Right now, no one knew exactly what they had to do to reach the stage of evolving the world. This question, he could only make guesses in his heart, but there was no way for him to ask in person. This was because becoming an immortal was a secret to everyone. If he really wanted to ask, Zhu Qin believed that Qin Shujian would not leak too much information. When the time came, not only would he not get what he wanted, but he might also anger the other party. Thinking of this, he immediately gave up on exploring the secret of evolving the world. In that case, if I follow the physical sanctification system, it should be the most suitable. When Zhu Chen thought of this, a bright light burst out from his eyes. The physical sanctification system. The main problem was the physical body. Only with a strong enough physical body would there be a possibility of passing the immortal ascension tribulation. The nine-headed dog clan was born with a strong physical body. Although their physical body was not ranked first among the 10,000 clans, it was still one of the few. This way, the chances of transcending the tribulation were still very high. And from the news that the heavenly court had spread, the power of the immortal ascension tribulation depended on the cultivator to a certain extent. So, in Zhu Chen's opinion, the terrifying power of Mu Yang's tribulation was most likely because of the other party's tyrannical foundation. If his foundation was not as good as the other parties, the power of the tribulation would not be so strong. Of course, this was not so strong, but it was only relatively speaking. If one really compared it, there was not much difference. The strong were strong, the weak were weak. The difficulty of transcending the tribulation was obvious. It was not so easy to succeed. The prerequisite for the physical sanctification is to have a strong enough physical body. There's no need for me to rush to break through now. It's better to polish it. Zhu Chen already had an idea in his heart. If he had already become an immortal, then forget it. But since he had not become an immortal, he definitely did not want to become an immortal with the system that was ranked last among the 3 major systems. No matter what, he had to try and see if he could walk the physical sanctification system. Perhaps the differences between the systems were not so obvious now, but when there were more experts with physical sanctification in the future, the differences between the systems would appear. When that time came, the experts who used the rules to become immortals would be in an awkward situation. After making up his mind, Zhu Chen suppressed the urge to break through to the true immortal realm. The current him had not truly reached his limit. The original limit was only relative to the rules. Now that he wanted to walk the physical sanctification system, the original limit was no longer the limit. What Zhu Chen had to do now was to continue tempering his body and truly temper it to a point where it could not advance any further. Only then could he truly break through and try to transcend the immortal ascension lightning tribulation. While Zhu Chen was focused on cultivating, many experts who had reached the limit of the celestial being realm of the myriad races had stopped thinking of breaking through. Instead, they began to settle down and strengthen their foundation, their goal. It was the same as Zhu Chen. They did not want to take the conventional path of breaking through. Instead, they wanted to take the path of physical sanctification. Only after breaking through could they be strong enough. Before Xiao Chengfeng broke through, he could already suppress ordinary true immortals. After breaking through, his strength was even more terrifying. Mu Yang's words, however, did not reveal anything. But no matter what, the prospect of sanctifying one's physical body was already there, and many confident experts wanted to give it a try. However, not all experts did so. Some of the experts still broke through to the true immortal realm using the traditional system. For them, it did not matter if their foundation was strong or weak, as long as they could break through. Chapter 785. After the spread of the 3 systems. In the following time, the number of experts who broke through to the true immortal realm decreased at a visible rate. Even though the star power was several times richer than usual, the birth of true immortals could not be compared to the past. Obviously, the reason for this was that most of the experts were waiting for the opportunity to transcend the tribulation. I heard that you've completely spread the body sanctification system? In the inner hall of the heavenly palace, Chu Kuangtu had a faint smile on his face. The person sitting opposite him was Qin Shujian. There were no extra immortals in the main hall, which was supposed to be a court meeting. There was only a stone table and 2 stone stools. On the stone table, there was spiritual tea brewing. Rich spiritual energy was emitted from the teacup, and the mist could be vaguely seen condensing into a giant tree. That was the form of the current Ling Huang. The spiritual tea brewed by Qin Shu Jian was not ordinary, but the spiritual flowers condensed on the osmanthus tree after Mu Yang became an immortal. After he became an immortal, the spiritual flowers condensed on the tree had already surpassed the limit of the 9th level. If there was a classification, it had already reached the sage stage. In the outside world, a cup of such spiritual tea was enough for a true martial realm cultivator to directly break through to the spirit god realm, or even the god martial realm. But for Qin Shu Jian and Chu Kuangtu, it only tasted better and had no other effect. Hearing what Chu Kuangtu said, Qin Shu Jian picked up the spiritual tea and shook his head with a faint smile. There was Xiao Qingfeng Mu Yang and you and the green ox transcending the tribulation. The news of the body sanctification can't be kept a secret for long. Even if I don't tell anyone, someone will try. Instead of letting them try to figure it out and then die under the thunder tribulation, it's better to announce it directly. Even if they really die during the tribulation in the future, they can't blame anyone. Whether to announce it or not, there would be people trying to break through in other ways. In that case, thus, Qin Shu Jian decided to be more straightforward and announce the information to the public. Chu Kuangtu said, "There's no harm in announcing it. What I didn't expect was that you would divide the system of breaking through to the true immortal realm into 3. Furthermore, in your eyes, the physical sanctification system isn't the strongest. If that's the case, is the heaven and earth derivation system that you're following really the strongest?" Speaking of the word strongest, Chu Kuangtu said meaningfully, "No matter the time, the word strongest was always controversial. There was no first place in literature. There was no second place in martial arts." Over the course of several eras, many experts had fallen just to compete for the title of the strongest. If this was the second era, if someone dared to say that their system was the strongest, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to live past 3 days. Even now, even Chu Kuangtu was tempted to make a move. He really wanted to see if what Qin Shu Jian said about being the strongest was true. However, Chu Kuangtu quickly dismissed the idea. His current realm was not on the same level as the other party. If they really fought, he would be asking for trouble. She sat opposite him. Qin Shu Jian replied calmly, "The system I'm following is naturally the strongest. Maybe it won't be the strongest in the future, but as long as I'm here, it will be the strongest. If you don't believe me, why don't you give it a try? When I break through to the 9th level of immortal, I'll give it a try." Chu Kuangtu chuckled and didn't answer this question. He wasn't afraid of anyone in the same realm. But if there was a gap of a few small realms, Chu Kuangtu wasn't sure that he could compete with Qin Shu Jian. If they really fought, that would be asking for trouble. Seeing that Chu Kuangtu didn't answer, Qin Shu Jian changed the topic and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, now that you've broken through to the 7th level of immortal, what are your chances of winning against the Devil Emperor?" In his eyes, Chu Kuangtu's realm was completely exposed. If the other party hadn't broken through to the 7th level of immortal, he wouldn't have come out to chat with him now. Which demon emperor is the Qin emperor referring to? Yizhua. Qin Shu Jian casually said the weakest devil emperor. Hearing that, Chu Kuangtu sneered proudly. It's easy to fight a wounded 8th level immortal demon emperor with bare hands. If I use the hibernation awakening, killing him will be a piece of cake. As soon as he finished speaking, the long saber on his back buzzed softly. The sword master had a Khanate supreme treasure to protect himself. The sword master also had a top divine weapon, hibernation awakening. Even his divine weapon in the second era was no weaker than Sanhua in terms of power. With such a supreme treasure, any 7th level immortal was qualified to kill an 8th level immortal. Not to mention, Chu Kuangtu was the reincarnation of a Dao fruit, different from an ordinary 7th level immortal. There was no problem for him to deal with the 8th level immortal, Yizhua. Good. Qin Shu Jian had a smile on his face. He was also very satisfied with Chu Kuangtu's confidence. After a while, the Heavenly Court will officially take action against the 3 major clans. At that time, I hope the Sword Master can really kill Yizhua as easily as you said today. I've never spoken empty words. Chu Kuangtu's expression didn't change. He picked up the teacup in front of him and said lightly, "Your Majesty, are you not taking action now because you're waiting for that bowls?" Chu Kuangtu's tone was a little unfriendly. Although they were now on the same side, he still had a lot of dissatisfaction with Neo Dali. The hatred of the Second Era. If there was a chance in the future, Chu Kuangtu would definitely take revenge. In fact, he was now thinking about whether he should take the initiative to suppress Neo Dali before he broke through to the 7th level immortal realm. However, Chu Kuangtu looked at Qin Shujian on the side, but he still didn't put this idea into action. This Qin Emperor, he wouldn't sit and watch them fight to the death. If he really attacked Neo Dali by force, he might be the one suppressed. He glanced at Chu Kuangtu. Qin Shujian shook his head. The feud between you and the Green Bull can be slowly settled after the tribulation. No one will care about you. But now that the tribulation is coming, don't cause any trouble. If you really cause trouble, I can't just stand by and watch. The Sword Master should understand this. The overall situation is more important. I still know this. Your Majesty, you don't have to say it. Chu Kuangtu retorted angrily. He knew it. Qin Shujian definitely wouldn't let him take action. Seeing this, Qin Shujian laughed. Sword Master, please don't take offense. It's just that it's better to talk about some things openly. Otherwise, it won't be good for you and me. Now that you've broken through to the 7th level immortal realm, when the Green Bull breaks through, the Heavenly Court will have full confidence to attack the 3 major clans. If you don't have absolute confidence to kill those demon emperors, it's meaningless even if you wipe out the other void demons. I believe you know very well how terrifying a demon emperor without any restrictions is. If they really wiped out all the void demons and then Beto and the other demon emperors escaped, the consequences would be very serious. Hearing this, Chu Kuangtu also nodded, as if it was a matter of fact. P.S. I recommend a friend's new books. My dad seems a little strong. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.